Allora, intanto grazie di essere così
So,
numerosi.
first of all, thanks for being so numerous. Anyway, I understood it. It was raining. You had nothing to do. And you came here. How it's not true. Who dares?
Allora, prima
So before I begin the presentation, I give the floor to Giovanni Bongiovanni, who
si occupa,
takes care of,
per essere esatti, di
is president, to be exact, of an association
di volontariato che
of volunteering
aiutare
that takes care of helping
l'infanzia.
disadvantaged childhood.
Avete sentito che la procuratrice
You heard that Prosecutor General Pam Bondi has published the first dossiers of Epstein
ha già
and has already counted about 250 violated children.
e dentro
And inside there are many, many, many famous people.
famose. Ho letto
I read the name of Mick Jagger, of Michael Jackson, and others,
e ovviamente
and obviously some English royals,
Inghilterra alcuni
and surely there will also be many Italians.
italiani.
So Funima takes care of disadvantaged childhood,
Sia disagiata non
not specifically of violences of this type,
delle violenze di queste
but childhood anyway in conditions of suffering.
condizioni di sofferenza.
Giovanni Bongiovanni is also,
Giovanni è anche
let's say so, the supervisor, the counselor
il consigliere
of a group that is here in Rome. So if you want,
quindi se volete
if you're interested to collaborate, you will find,
collaborare poi troverete
at the small tables, you will find the
ai tavoli
indications and the people to be able to aggregate or anyway, to have information.
aggregare o comunque per avere informazioni.
Giovanni Bongiovanni also has a particular personal story because he is the son of Giorgio Bongiovanni, stigmatized, permanent stigmatized, starting from September 2nd, 1989. So, it's a very particular experience. Let's say he breathes certain themes since when he was a child. I met him when I think he was, how old were you? 4, 5 years old? Yes?
Yes, yes.
I brought him a Sardinian teddy bear. I give the floor to Giovanni.
Thanks, thanks. Thanks also for these memories. It's true, it's true.
Beautiful memories.
Yes.
Allora, grazie, vi ringrazio anch'io per essere
So,
qua.
thanks. I thank you too for being here. I'm very happy that we filled this room, but we had no doubts, and not because it rains. I believe you, Pier Giorgio. Not because it rains, but because there's so much interest. So, let's say I begin indicating to you again. Pier Giorgio already did it. What are the structures that you have behind you to orient yourselves? Because then at the exit, so you know how to direct yourselves to find the in-depth contents. So the table of all Pier Giorgio's material is the one you have on this side, while on that other, there are the products, food, that we sell as Funima International, which is the humanitarian association, of which I am the president, and are fundraising for humanitarian character projects, of education, of social reintegration, and of everything else. That now I explain to you what I deal with this association. Third sector entity, and then there's a box where we are collecting donations, because besides the association, as Pierre was saying, I deal with coordinating together with other guys who are today here in the room, a Rome group, a study group of people who meet to carry forward research on themes that regard the nature of man, the nature of the divine, why we are here, what is our mission on earth, all themes of spiritual nature that we, let's say we enclose within this container that we like to call with the name of science of the spirit. Word that you have heard very often from Pier Giorgio. This is a bit our science, indeed, that encloses all the themes, the subjects that regard the world, spiritual. So here in Rome, if you want, You can leave us also your contacts, so we will call you back, because we meet once a month. That is, every month we carry forward a path of research, of study and insights, watching together. Seminars of Pier Giorgio Correa. We have insights on the nature of man, on the eye, on the ego, on the nature of our bodies, and on a path that we carry forward together of knowledge, of research, and of truth clearly. And then we try to make it concrete in the territory through actions. Practical and concrete, that is, we like that spirituality of very practical nature. And so we decide to live it together, starting from study, so dividing a bit our life between contemplation and activism. Okay? This is what this group in Rome does, if you want. On that side, there's also the small box where we collect donations, the offerings to cover today's room expenses. Beside, you have a form, if you leave us, even just the phone number. We with a WhatsApp tell you every month where we meet to do our meetings. I recommend you to participate because it's beautiful, then the love for knowledge is what characterizes us. Instead, as an association. So, the donations we are collecting today in that small box that you find there are to cover the room expenses. So among other activities, the Rome Group tries to carry forward the dissemination of this type of knowledge, to disseminate them, to make them known to the world. So this is the second or third conference that we have organized with Pier Giorgio. We would like to organize others if we can, since we self-finance. If you want to put an offering to cover today's expenses and to have funds for the next conference that we want to do always here soon, we thank you. As an association instead, I am president of this association that I founded, together with friends and together with my family. Clearly, my father, I was a boy, I was 17 years old, he introduced me to the lay missionaries with whom he collaborated in Latin America. So Funima International started immediately. I made a trip with friends to get to know the realities of indigenous communities that live in the Andes, in Argentina. In the north, we are close to Chile, we are close to Bolivia, we are close to Paraguay, between the Andes and the Chaco Forest. Chaco Forest is a forest, the second most biodiverse after the Amazon, that starts down there and arrives in the Amazon. It's a land where thousands live still today because they have not disappeared of original indigenous communities. We have been working there for 20 years, and we carry forward humanitarian character projects. So the table that is here today and that sells these products also serves to collect funds, indeed serves to collect funds for this type of projects. That focus above all on the theme of water. That is, we accompany original indigenous communities in the development process, starting from water, so in zones of extreme drought, we build wells. Wells, rainwater collection systems, cisterns, water networks, and we do it with our private funds that we collect, also through campaigns that you can find online on the site that is here behind funimainternational.org. You can read everything regarding the association because we publish constantly. Then there's the Facebook channel and the Instagram channel mainly. In my personal channels, don't confuse yourselves, but I publish more or less the same things that we post as an association, plus content that I create of character also, spiritual on particular themes. But the association goes forward on the humanitarian theme, working close to indigenous communities. There are the budgets, there's all transparency. Then I dedicate a lot to showing what we do through documentaries, through filming, through interviews. You daily can see the things we deal with. Indeed, I take the opportunity to say that the day after tomorrow, I will return to Argentina. I will stay there a couple of months between Argentina and Brazil. With me, I will bring 20 Italian volunteers, because every year, people volunteers who during the year either finance the association or dedicate their time for volunteer activities, I bring them to see these realities to then return to Italy and give testimony. So we will document everything that you will find in the next month and a half will regard precisely the live coverage of our activities on the territory, because we care a lot about transparency, to show, to be accountable. They are small projects. However, the ocean is formed by many drops. The world of education instead, because Italy is the place where we live. I live in Palermo, so we started in the south, in this city, wonderful, but also complicated in many aspects. The activities are in education for children who live in difficult neighborhoods. At Ballarò, we work mainly at the albergheria, all neighborhoods of the historic center that experience complex social realities. They are education and support for children projects and social reintegration for adults that we always accompany in a path trying to offer them work to, let's say, improve their living conditions. So in Italy, we are present. We also expand to other areas of Italy now. Now, not to describe all projects because we have little time, but you can find them on the internet. We also do food delivery to homeless, to people who live in difficult situations in Italian cities. Because as you know, before I was talking with friends, there are people who live in difficulty and are visible. That is those, unfortunately, Gaza, you know, the war, Ukraine, everything that gets published today on television brings us back also a reality of people who are living dramatic situations, war, death, hunger. Then instead, there's a world of invisible people who live in our neighborhoods, in our beautiful buildings, but who also live a situation of extreme suffering. Well, we try to be present also in Italy, also in less known areas, to be nearby. A bit to everyone, also on our territory, even if the main projects we always direct them to children, because we were born trying to improve children's conditions, and then clearly of mothers, of fathers, and of the whole family, first with indigenous communities and then with other communities in our Italian peninsula. If you want to help us, you find everything online. To make a donation, to share, put a like or comment on all our articles and news that we publish regarding the association. We care a lot because, yes, our thought has ancient origins. So our philosophy is that of getting to know ourselves better, the relationship we have with the divine. However, then bring in concrete manner all this knowledge into everyday life, helping others. Here, so it's not a study that we want to do. Very important, however, that has only a personal goal of evolution. However, we also want to give what we have learned to others, and this is the tool, the association. I thank you. I will stay here. We will be here also tomorrow for those who will remain. And that's it. I leave you to tonight's evening. Thanks again.
Alla serata di oggi. Grazie ancora.
Well, the Mass is finished. Go in peace.
Allora, l'invasione dei droni, la civiltà
So,
di APU,
the invasion of drones, the civilization of Apu, and the Mayan prophecy, an incredible connection. Things are happening, impressive things, in our society, at the level above all international. And in the moment when, can you hear there behind? In the moment when Trump ran for American elections, they tried to kill him at least 3 times, that we know. NATO, American-led Biden administration, has lost the war with Russia, so about 50 nations have been defeated militarily by Putin's Russia. Alessandro Orsini always says, when a nation or nations lose a war, there are consequences. The consequences are very serious. In fact, Europe is collapsing because it has slavishly aligned itself, Italy included, not Italy, us. The Italian government of this lady, in my opinion, unpresentable, if not ridiculous, who screamed like a tiger before being elected and then started purring with the worst criminals that are around. The hugs with little hearts with Zelensky, The fawning over Biden, a shameful thing. Obviously, I'm not talking about politics. Politics doesn't interest me. Because true politics, that is, interest in the management of the police, of the res publica, that is, of the public thing, has been dead for a long time in terms of ideals. Today, only careerism, power, success, money exist. Nothing else exists, indeed. The left wing are even worse than the right wing. That is, it's a single aggregate. It's a single clot of scoundrels and thieves who steal from our pockets, promising things they will never keep. Unfortunately, in this scenario, the people sleep. They do nothing because still Italy, which is a very fortunate nation from the geographic point of view, from the landscape point of view, from the food point of view, from the cultural point of view. So for the Italian, take everything away from him, but not his vices. So until the bomb doesn't explode in his face, for him nothing is happening. Indeed, in the criticisms that many make of me on YouTube comments, Korea always talks, but nothing ever happens, like nothing ever happens. They must be those 2 or 3 who just arrived from Mars. He never shows us anything. I don't know. Should I pull down my pants? What should I do? So, Biden entered, they tried to kill him, and some important facts happened that I want to explain to you. No, Biden went into the closet. Trump, yes, sorry, lapse. Trump entered. Trump is a businessman. He's not a politician. And for him, business counts. And when he understood that the clique, super corrupt, of the Biden family, that took money, also from China, according to what certain investigators say, but corrupt to the bone, Hunter Biden is on drugs, he's a sex addict. He's a sad case, because the father has always been a careerist, a criminal who is behind many of the wars, including that of Yugoslavia. And so he's an abandoned son, left to himself, who lost his mother, and so he threw himself into depravity, but he's a corrupt one. Biden was inside, the son, Hunter Biden was on the board of directors of a company called Burisma, a Ukrainian company that dealt with energy, and was overpaid for doing nothing. So Ukraine had been chosen by this Western oligarchic elite as a black hole for money laundering, for biolaboratories where Fauci experimented the worst things, also on children. Viruses that were tested on poor Ukrainians and on soldiers. So everything happened, obviously. Mr. Montana will never have spoken to you about these things. That is the mainstream. Bruno Vespa, the Rai News, etc., have never spoken about it. Independent information spoke about it. But with Trump's election, now everyone is talking about it. That is suddenly the themes of so-called counter-information, or of so-called conspiracism, have become themes on the main American channels. Here in Italy, practically nothing ever arrives. Did you see the last interview I did with Red Ronnie? Did you see what she said? Representative Anna Paolina Luna? That is practically the speeches we made now these characters make them. So the world is changing at an impressive speed, which means that the prophecy is being fulfilled. Another drama that affects the life of almost the totality of human beings is that we got bogged down in a ridiculous story called religious creed, where God is something that is not well understood what it is, a kind of ectoplasmic entity, shapeless, that is not known where it is. More or less, this is the concept of God that the average common Catholic has, or rather, of an old man with white beard, maybe with a bit of sciatica, like I have today. But God is not like that. For example, in Genesis, God and two other divine beings, because there are many gods, or divinities, so the silly belief in multiple gods that exists only in religions, so-called polytheistic or pagan, in reality, is the truth. And so there's a very important story where a gentleman, very important for us, who is called Abraham, who is the father of the three monotheistic religions, that is Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Abraham is the son, he is the father of these three religions. He's a prophet who gets revered, venerated by the three monotheist religions that then kill each other like dogs. Mr. Abraham was in the oak grove of Mamre. At a certain point, he sees arriving three characters, and there he calls them God, Lord God. He prostrates himself because he knew them. So he had physical encounters. With this entity, with these entities, he prostrates himself. He worships them and then stands up and invites them to sit in the shade because it was a very hot day. Then he invites them to wash their feet because they had arrived walking. Obviously, there was no asphalt. And they had dusty sandals. Then he calls one of his servants and tells him to kill a calf and to prepare some good steaks. Then he has fresh milk brought and calls his wife Sarah and tells her, "Bake the bread, because I have to serve God, Lord God." The simple fact that is in any Bible, that is found in any place. Tears to pieces, all the creed of common Catholicism. When I talk about it, people's jaws drop to the ground. But how? God ate meat, ate bread, drank milk, washed his feet. Yes, the Bible says so. So since our religion is founded on sacred scriptures, ergo our religion is founded on these facts. Friends, what does this mean? Now I went. Adam and Eve seemed to me a bit too far, so I got closer and chose Abraham. It means that religion as it has been presented doesn't exist. A reality exists. Scientific, real, also physical, transcendent and immanent, that determines historical facts. Because this entity, called God, has a very important attribute. He is omnipotent and has projects. The omnipotent always achieves his projects precisely because he's omnipotent. Since we come from him, then it would be worth discussing what we come from him really means. He has endowed us with free will. What is free will? In scientific terms, we can use this phrase, making a lot of mess. This is free will. So, free will and God's project are irreconcilable because a project is mathematical and ordered. It has a birth, an ascent, and a logical conclusion that determines the fulfillment of the initial idea. So I want the house. I call the architect or the surveyor. I tell him, I want it like this, and like this. He draws it. In the end, we reach the objective. We call the builders and all the workers that are needed to make the house, and the house will exist physically. The idea becomes matter. The intangible becomes tangible. So what happens? That if someone arrives and does things a bit his own way, for example, a builder, I throw him out with kicks in the ass. I intervene and don't allow him to use his free will within my project. Is the reasoning clear? That is, an authority intervenes, in this case me, because I pay. And when one pays, one commands. At least in this world it works like this. Not always, because sometimes one pays, then the wife commands, but these are other matters. Here I command, right, love? Yes. Sure. So, this fact, that the authority intervenes and corrects free will, is a historical fact. It's a geopolitical fact. That is, God always intervenes in history, determining changes of empire, of authority, when the project, or better, when humanity in its exercise of free will, moves away too much from what is its final objective. Clear. So, if God intervenes in history with historical facts, it cannot be only a spiritual discourse. It's a discourse. Social, it's a historical discourse, it's a scientific discourse. Because God intervenes in history, changing it, at His pleasure, at His will, according to the objectives He has to reach. What are the objectives that God has to reach? The kingdom. Come, blessed of my Father. Hell, I almost seem like an American preacher. Do I do well, Paolo? I'm not an American preacher. However, I try to explain this moment because it's very important, because being a historical fact, it concerns us. We are in it up to our necks and we couldn't escape. We don't have spaceships. We are prisoners on this little sphere that turns around the sun. So God intervenes by force and changes history because history is moving away too much, which is the expression of humanity's free will, from what is His project. Come, blessed of my Father, take possession of the kingdom. Prepared for you since the beginning of times. That is when God created humanity. He already knew what He wanted to reach, so if I call the surveyor or the architect, I know what I want to reach. I ask for help. But I have in mind an intangible idea that has to become tangible. We work like this. Have you ever seen hunger? It doesn't exist. Hunger is not visible. You perceive it. So we perceive hunger and materialize a sandwich through a logical physical process. I go to the fridge, I take the salami, I go in the cupboard, I take the bread, and I make myself the sandwich with salami. So, all the geopolitics of so-called experts, including that of Alessandro Orsini, is a big joke, because God enters history and messes everything up. So today, March 1st, 2025, we are living a historical reality that shouldn't exist. God determined it through geopolitical choices, because He is the true cause of all geopolitics. In the moment that He decides to intervene, nobody can stop Him, because He is endowed with will and is endowed with power and is endowed with objectives to reach. Put together these three things, and you have March 1st, 2025. That shouldn't exist like this. In the plans of the globalist elites who lost the war with Putin, they had another terrible project. God tore it to pieces. So, I don't want to say that geopolitics experts, I have been... Friend is a too demanding word. However, let's say I have personally known Giulietto Chiesa. I have been with him in Moscow. Maybe Giulietto has been the greatest geopolitics expert of modern Italian history. But in his geopolitics was missing the most important thing, God's project. But attention, he knew, even though he was a veteran communist Leninist. In reality, Giulietto had understood many things. I think we were in Tolentino with Giovanni. We were walking. At a certain point while chatting, he stops, looks at us and says, "God drives crazy those he wants to destroy." We remained like this. Do you remember it, Giovanni? God drives crazy? Giulietto Chiesa says this, and it's true. I will confuse the minds of the powerful, and I will put them one against the other. It's what is happening. What is this? That today is reality. Daniel's prophecy. That when he goes to King Nebuchadnezzar to explain to him the dream that the king had had, if you want after I'll tell it to you entirely, he explains it to him. And in the dream, the Babylonian king sees this gigantic statue that was made of various metals. The head was of gold, the part below was of silver, then of bronze, then of iron mixed with clay, the feet. The feet are the last empire that would exist on earth. So we are talking about thousands of years ago. We were at the time when Daniel was a Jew, together with the Jews, slave of Babylon, of which King Nebuchadnezzar has been, that one, let's say, the most enlightened of all. The meaning of the feet of this statue that represents the great empires of history. So the golden head is that of Nebuchadnezzar's. That was an enlightened kingdom, because Nebuchadnezzar, it's true that, in quotes, enslaves the Jews, but doesn't crush them. Indeed, he had at his court Jewish counselors, among whom the very young Daniel, that since he was young was very wise, was a prophet of God. The silver part, now I don't remember which empire it was. Then the bronze part is the Hellenic Empire. The iron part is the Empire of Rome. The part of iron mixed with clay is the modern empire, Anglo-American. And Daniel explains to the king that the feet of this terrible statue that inspired fear, of clay and iron, indicates that in the last empire that would collapse to make room for God's kingdom, with the second physical manifestation of Christ, would be an empire of only conveniences. So you put together iron and clay and they don't mix, because the bond is not the value that unites, that glues, that creates strength. They are fictitious values founded on personal egoism, and so they are false unions, false alliances, and these alliances would collapse because, indeed, they are false, and it's what is happening. The empires are all fragmenting, both externally and internally. So we are in the midst of Daniel's prophecy. This is happening. About this I will talk to you, in terms of what is happening, because all this preamble that I made leads to these historical facts that happened, that I want to explain to you, and that connect even to a prophetic corpus of a mysterious and fascinating people that we have never known, who are the Maya. Because the Maya who still exist today, I visited several of their communities in 2012. They are not the ones who built those magnificent cities, immersed in the jungles of Mexico, Guatemala, and so on. Basically, Central America, South America. There's a void. And when the Spanish arrive, the conquistadores, the Mayan cities, were deserted and overtaken to the jungle. The strange thing is that there was no sign that explained the complete disappearance of a kingdom so large that had built those magnificences, that had mathematical and astronomical knowledge. Incredible. Besides a concept of time, different from ours. Their prophecies that came to us through 3 codices, plus one that is doubtful. So we have only 4 Mayan codices, but already from these emerge impressive knowledge that challenge current science in their predictive capacity. Obviously, all the discourse and anyway the focus of my research is the presence of these very evolved civilizations that from the explosion of the first atomic bomb in 1945 visit us with more frequency because they saw that we took the way of no return, that of nuclear, the one that can destroy all life on the planet in a few minutes. And these civilizations have a project that regards God's project, and they bring us a gift because they are here to facilitate the birth of the kingdom. But the new kingdom also needs a new man, a new human being, because the old human being cannot enter that kingdom. So they bring us a corpus of knowledge. It's the most precious gift they are giving us, where finally religion dies as we have known it, and comes into play a science that for us has no value, which is the science of the Spirit, where spiritual laws are not creeds, they are real laws, so powerful that they determine reality. The knowledge and use of these laws is able to change the course of events. That is, I can modify the reality of my life with the knowledge and utilization of these laws. So I become conscious of the cause, of how I have to determine it, and of the effect I have to reach in my complete reality, not only material. Well-off people, let's say rich, can surely determine a lot in material matters, but in the moment when they have a sentimental problem, a health problem, or problems, let's say, immaterial, with great surprise, they realize that with money, they cannot buy those things. They escape the power of money. Because we are flesh, so money, if we want to use this comparison, but we are mainly spirit. So I can buy sex, but I cannot buy love. I can buy sycophants, I cannot buy friends. So for the human being then, when that fateful day arrives, day X, that precedes your physical death, there everything falls. Your riches, your goods, your affections, and you find yourself in front of the great unknown. Something so banal and common that it scares us. To death. Death. I am still today amazed at how come after thousands of years the human being has not found an answer, true and scientific, of what the hell is death. What is death? Not what happens when one dies, but after what is there. What isn't there? Will I be there? Won't I be there? This is important. Since everyone has to die, I think it would have been, rather than going to look for water on Mars, or hydrogen molecules in the galaxy, I don't know, of Andromeda. Maybe it was a bit more important to understand what death is. At least I could prepare myself. I would know what I will experience. Because if my project of the house is a badly made project, then the house collapses on my head. So what was the use of all my effort during life if then I have to find myself in front of a failure? And these answers are in the science of the Spirit. So, since it's an extremely complex theme that completely breaks with our way of living, it's certainly not in a conference or in meetings like this that one has to study at home, because the vastness of the theme is gigantic. Then there's another problem. Knowledge is a food. For today's humanity, knowledge is an indigestible food. The knowledge of spiritual sciences is indigestible, Because our brain is shaped by the knowledge stimuli it receives. Because the brain is a plastic organ, so depending on the kind of food we consume throughout life, the brain forms its neural networks. So, since the food that society gives us at a cultural level is pure garbage, indeed, they are shameless lies. Like saying that the Minister Hopeless is a great doctor, or that Burioni is a huge expert. We don't know how to think critically, and we are filled with false beliefs, false cultural beliefs. So, when you encounter true knowledge, the brain doesn't recognize it, doesn't know how to digest it. One has to give it time to form new neural networks. And so it takes effort and study. I always say it, but repetita juvant, that is, repeating helps. So the information you find on my site, then on my site there's the section Free Resources. From there you can download about 20 booklets. 20 books, that are all extraterrestrial and divine messages. You find them at the small table, over there, together with other items. We have them printed on paper because, in anticipation of future energy crises, these don't require energy and never run out. There's no risk that the battery runs out and you can't read anymore. Besides the fact that many, still today especially, those not so green like me prefer the tangible rather than the immaterial. Did you hear about that guy who lost the hard disk with bitcoins he bought? The garbage dump where it had been thrown, and started rummaging there? It really happened. But if he had had suitcases of cash money, he wouldn't have had the problem. If you don't find them or decide subsequently to buy them, you can write to this email and you can order them. The cost is very low. They cost you less. With an edition anyway. Beautiful. Beautiful paper, beautiful cover. You would spend more if you went to print the electronic booklets at a copy shop. Another source of knowledge is my YouTube channel. There are hundreds, indeed maybe thousands of hours of conferences and interviews on the most varied themes. Then there's the site of Giorgio Bongiovanni, Giovanni's dad, which is another source of knowledge because Giorgio, being also a contactee, as well as stigmatized, receives messages from extraterrestrials. Then there's also Giorgio Bongiovanni's YouTube channel. I started a new initiative, which is a subscription that costs 70,000 euros per year. No, some zeros less. Almost free. It's a subscription where Dash subscribers have access to content that I cannot publish on the free channel, so I fulfill the free obligation. But, like today we are here, and an event like this costs anyway some money. So it gives me a way to publish things that I cannot put on free online. Others, yes, and then it's a space a bit more private, where I can interact more directly with subscribers. There's a monthly section, questions and answers, where people write me, and I answer their questions personally. So a more direct way that adds to that of events like this. You find it on the site's homepage. Scroll down and you find the subscribe button. Then it will open this page for you, and so on. If we want to stay in contact and be informed about events, on the site there's the section Events, or you can write to the Secretariat's email. Then there's the Facebook page, Instagram, and my Telegram channel, where I publish practically only the events I go to do, all those in person, those online, and so on. Then there's also the newsletter. One per month. We are not serial spammers. Then there's another possibility. I have developed over the years in-depth courses on these themes, which are very vast and will never be exhausted, in the time frame of a conference. We call them seminars. You can access from here to the page of seminars. They are courses that have a cost. The cost? Obviously, the parameters are among the most varied for people. But for what has been the work I put into these courses are almost given away. I assure you that courses by fellow educators where there isn't even a shadow of the amount of information you find here cost much more indeed. The more well-off people, well-off in the sense that they could afford courses. With other educators, when they learned the prices I charge, they told me, "You are crazy." We pay 300 to 400 euros for 3 hours, where something gets said, maybe a tenth of what you say, during an entire day. It's not that I do it to brag, simply I explain reality. So then, here is the page that opens, where you find the seminars. I'll show you some. This is a study I made on the very serious violation of human rights. That was the imposition of the green pass to be able to work. With Mr. Little Mario, great scoundrel. The gates of hell and the dark secrets of the elite, symbolisms and occult meanings behind the diabolical plans for world domination. All these people are Satanists, and they use Kabbalah, use numbers, use symbols, and when they do things, often they are sacrifices. The green pass for workers was a sacrifice, an offering to their god of light, that is Lucifer, to have power because the elite is going into crisis. It was said it years ago by Baron Rothschild. The one who died said, "We are entering, and we are navigating in unknown waters." Another seminar is this, The Last War of the Antichrist, where I explain the roots and the deep issues, spiritual and prophetic, of the war between NATO and Ukraine. Other seminars are The Friendship Case, 9 episodes, The Hollow Earth, another great scientific truth, hidden from humanity. Inside the Earth, there's another Earth, so the planet is double-sided, with an internal sun. It was discovered by German scientists in 1936 and has been kept hidden. They also tried to invade it. Americans also tried, sending aircraft carriers, submarines, seaplanes, and about 6,000 military. In the 1947? Now I don't remember. I found a few years ago were published online documents of the mysterious section of SS, Ahnenerbe, that dealt with esoteric research. and Ahnenerbe also dealt with hollow earth. It was Ahnenerbe that went to Tibet in 1936 because the Nazis discovered, thanks to an international intrigue that involved the Soviets, they discovered that Tibetan lamas had knowledge and maps of hollow earth and knew how to enter. So an expedition left. And few years ago came out the hollow earth maps with also entry points that had been nautical charts of Ahnenerbe came out in Russia. Sacred geometry, mysteries of history, that is linked to the karma and reincarnation discourse. The immortal prince and the mysteries of Musine, ufology, mysteries of the moon. Read Ronnie the other day, there was Madzuko. But then, let's clarify, because Madzuko, Massimo, whom I respect very much, is besides a good researcher, he's a really ethical person. I admire him for his human and moral qualities. However, he maintains that we never went to the moon because he made a research anyway that demonstrates that many things published by NASA about the lunar conquest are false. But I know the truth. We went to the moon. We even went there 6 times. If one wants to make a fake, you make one and stop there. You don't make 6 fakes with the risk of being discovered. And so there's another mystery. It's just that Massimo is not an expert of extraterrestrials, because the crux of the problem is the extraterrestrial presence on the moon. So I analyze in these seminars all the truths that are on the moon, including the concealment of the moon's real colors. The moon is not gray. The moon is made of the same minerals that are on Earth. I have to publish my debate with ChatGPT. Yes, I asked it, but is the moon gray? Yes, sure, the moon is gray, but I know there's this thing. Well, yes, actually, there's also that one. And then there's also that one. Well, yes, in the end, the moon is colored like Earth. It admitted it. Then I had this, chat with ChatGPT spoken. I still have to publish it. The evidence of extraterrestrial presence on our satellite. Then, I included it in the seminars, but actually this is on my YouTube channel, so it's freely accessible. The conquest of the moon and extraterrestrial implications. A skillfully manipulated reality. And here I explain. It's 4 hours of conference, so 4 hours, a lot of stuff. I explain why NASA planted the poisoned seed that we never went to the moon. And I also explain why they removed colors from the moon. Still today they publish photos of the moon in black and white. They remove the color. Well, so, prophecy is not a religious fact. Prophecy is a geopolitical fact. Not understood, because prophecy presents a premise. If you don't change, this will happen. Why? Reality is a flow of events, but reality is a flow of events that gets determined by our choices. So if I change my choices, I change reality. It's an obvious fact. But it's obvious at levels much bigger, for example. The Gospel is not a religious book. It's a manual of science of the Spirit that is not explained. Because the Church corrupting itself, when Constantine makes it official organ, official religion of the empire, has systematically destroyed these type of knowledge that for a full 300 years after Christ ascended to heaven were taught by the first fathers of the Church and by the apostles, including St. Paul. So prophecy is a fact that predicts, that can happen or not happen according to our choice. Indeed, in prophecy, we are also told what is the variation that we have to bring to be able to modify a nefarious event that otherwise would happen due to the facts that are currently happening due to existing premises and conditions. So, since it's in the future of humanity, contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, there exist numerous prophecies, or predictions if we want to use this term, about contact, and they come from the most diverse sources. These prophecies say that there will be a day when extraterrestrial spaceships will land en masse on planet Earth. For now, they show themselves, appear, disappear, get photographed and get filmed. However, in reality, they have never landed en masse. For example, let's go to the Bible. Isaiah 13:5. This prophecy is very important. They come from a far-off country and from the ends of the heavens, the Lord and the instruments of his wrath. This prophecy links perfectly to the discourse of Abraham's encounter in the oak grove of Mamre, because here it tells us that the Lord doesn't live on earth. The Lord comes from outside, and from outside come the instruments of his wrath, and the instruments that come from space, that is, from the ends of the heavens. So what are they? Extraterrestrials. And they are messengers, is it true? Of harmony and universal love, but they are above all instruments of God's justice. I mean, they are an army that has the task of protecting the universal cosmic order in military terms. In other words, when there are crazy ones, like the Earthlings who start to build thousands of atomic bombs, this celestial army position itself permanently on that planet, establishing permanent bases, and they begin to watch over the process of that society, so that at the moment when these crazy ones unfortunately decide to unleash a thermonuclear war that can destroy the entire planet, they intervene immediately with the force of their science fiction technology. So this verse is very important because it contains all those elements that tell us things that man, the human being, and even less the religions have understood. The same thing is told to us, plain and simple, popely speaking. By the way, how is Francesco doing? All well? We don't know. Someone says that he has already departed because it seems that his sister departed from Argentina to come to Rome. Michel de Notre Dame. Nostradamus, Quatrain 1 to 91. The gods will make appearance to humans. The gods. So again we find the concept that these entities that come from outside, Nostradamus also calls them as Abraham called them, they are divinities. The gods will make appearance to humans, to the blind authors of the great conflict. That will make spring, sky seen serene, swords and lance. I reread, to the authors, to the powerful authors blinded by their power, authors of the great conflict of the thermonuclear war that will break out on a serene spring day. That towards the main left hand, namely towards the west, so the west will be the part most hit by the nuclear attack, possibly by Russia. Fatima, October 13th, 1917. The Madonna makes see this scene, symbolically, let's say, to the three little shepherds, and tells them, and in that time, second half of the 20th century, cosmic beings will come from distant shores of the universe in the name of God. You see that we always find the same concepts, Nostradamus, Isaiah, divinities. They come from afar, in the name of God. So they bring peace, but they also bring justice.
Papa Giovanni XXIII.
Pope John the 23rd, in 1935, the so-called Good Pope, was Apostolic Nuncio in Istanbul. He was a Freemason Pope. Pope John, he was a Rosicrucian. And in Istanbul, he participates in an initiatic session of his Masonic lodge and goes into an altered state of consciousness and makes prophecies that extend until 2033, where they are interrupted. And in these prophecies, Pope John speaks of many things. He speaks of Eugenio Siragusa without naming him. He speaks of Giorgio Bongiovanni without naming him, and speaks of the contact and says, oh, these texts, these writings that reported what the future Pope said while he was in an altered state of consciousness are classified, obviously, by the Vatican. But Pier Carpi, writer and director, who is a Freemason too, had some access to the Vatican, managed to obtain this correspondence and published it in this book, The Prophecies of Pope John. Pier Carpi has written a beautiful book that I recommend you read on Alessandro, Count of Cagliostro, who has been mystified by the Inquisition, passing him off as a petty thief from Palermo named Giuseppe Balsamo. So the mud machine has existed for a long time already. The prophecy says, more and more numerous the signs. The lights in the sky will be red, blue, green, fast. They will grow. Someone comes from afar. Madonna of Fatima. Cosmic beings will come from distant shores of the universe, Isaiah, from the extremity of the heavens. And so this concept of distance is reiterated. Someone comes from afar, wants to meet the men of the earth. Meetings have already taken place, but who has truly seen has remained silent. Now this sentence is very intriguing because it was made in 1935, while ufology was born on June 24, 1947, so 12 years later, than when the Pope said, but those who have truly seen have remained silent. Then in relatively recent times, in the 90s, it came out that Mussolini, the fascists, recovered a flying saucer fallen in Lombardy in the 30s. So probably the Pope in this altered state of consciousness, the Pope, let's say Angelo Roncalli, the future Pope, has seen that the contact had already occurred, and who has truly seen has remained silent. Then when the war ended, this flying saucer kept in a hangar of an airport, I believe of Vergiate, was taken away by the Americans. And obviously the prophecy of the contact could not be missing in the gospel. I mean, Jesus could not refrain, since these beings come in the name of his Father, from speaking about it. Then St. Paul will speak about it. In short, we have various prophecies. And so we go to Matthew 24, which is the chapter precisely of the complete prophecy of the return of Christ, among which we read, immediately after the tribulation of those days, so, atomic war, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky. This is the nuclear winter. The sun is darkened, and the moon does not give its light anymore, because the nuclear explosions hurl millions of tons of dust into the atmosphere that darken it. But there will also be an extraterrestrial intervention that will intervene to remove the energy from the entire planet and block, within 10 minutes, the atomic war. And so they reverse the course of the solar corpuscles. And there will be 72 hours of darkness. The stars will fall from the sky. The stars are the extraterrestrial spaceships and are seen as, let's say, stars that fall from the sky. Obviously, for the evangelists, the concept of spaceship did not exist, so they see these bright objects that descend from the sky, and for them they are the spaceship. I mean, they are the stars that fall on Earth. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. It's the change of the physical axis of the planet. Then these things I have, there are others that I have explained in other contexts. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming upon the clouds of heaven, which are always the spaceships, with power and great glory. He will send out his angels with a trumpet blast, and they will gather his elect from the four winds. So the pickup happens. This way, all over the planet, either physically or on a soul level. And this part of the painting by Bruce Pennington illustrates that prophecy that says, "Two men will be out in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one will be left, because only the elect will be taken." So the prophecy of Jesus and the one of Fatima on the contact are part of the most opposed and fought truth of the extraterrestrial visit, which is messianic. I mean, the extraterrestrial visit is an eschatological sign that indicates that we are in the time of the physical manifestation of Christ. And the signs the extraterrestrials have given them. So these beings are nothing but those beings, the angels of biblical memory, of the past. I will not dwell on this aspect that I have treated in various other events. However, it was important anyway to recall it. Anyway, the signs have been there. Cross of spheres of light appeared in Florida, filmed by Mr. Steve Barnes in Florida in 2005 in the city of St. Petersburg. Curiously, St. Petersburg is Putin's city. Well, fancy that. But there is another civilization that speaks of the prophecies, that makes the prophecies on the contact, which are the Maya. But they are not the Maya, those historical ones known by us. Because between the Maya who made these marvelous constructions and the Maya who meet the Spanish, there is a void. There is a void that historians do not understand. Because the true Maya, those who had these architectural capacities, I have visited various Maya cities. They are marvelous. They have disappeared. Immense cities. There are no skeletons. There are no signs of war. There are no signs of epidemics. Disappeared. Puff. A very large empire, very vast. And these Maya are called galactic Maya. I have been in a particular place in Mexico because for years archaeological artifacts have been coming to light where there are spaceships, extraterrestrials with the Maya, etc. And there great climatic changes have occurred, and also geological ones, which led to the disappearance of all archaeological evidence. And these objects are found underground. They are mainly offerings for tombs or ornaments that people had on them, but they are impressive. I have seen various ones. So these Maya, the true Maya who did these things and had these knowledges, were in contact with the extraterrestrials and probably were taken away by them. A full 8 centuries before the arrival of the conquistadores. So until today their destiny is unknown, but not even so much because then the official archaeology refuses these archaeological artifacts because there are the flying saucers. I have been to the museum of Nazca. You know the lines of Nazca, those that are seen only from above? We were shooting a documentary. And near Nazca, there is the town of Ica. In the desert of Okukaye, the peasants found an enormous number of black andesite, stones, graphite, and there are spaceships, extraterrestrial beings, and dinosaurs. So they are, it was later understood thanks to the study by a doctor from ICA, Dr. Cabrera, that these stones were a lithic library. So these beings, before disappearing due to the climate change due to the wrong use of their technologies, which generated floods and terrible situations. Carved the stone, because the stone perhaps is the most lasting thing on which we can leave stories, informations. And since there are extraterrestrials and dinosaurs, the archaeologists outright say they are fake. But they are not false, because they have been subjected to some tests a bit more complicated. Because they are stones, carbon-14 dating cannot be performed on them, which can be done only on things of biological origin. You cannot do an analysis on the stone. However, you can do analyses on crystallization and on other things, and they are real. I was at the Museum of Nazca with, at the time, the most important Peruvian archaeologist whom we were supposed to interview. At a certain point in a showcase of this museum, among other things run by an Italian, Museum Antonini it is called, I see an engraved stone. So I call the archaeological eminence, I say, "Excuse me, but here you have an engraved stone?" "Oh yes." "But you say they are false." No, this one is true." "Oh, and why is it true?" "Well, because there are no dinosaurs with human beings, so, do you understand?" I said this one is stupid. I mean, their parameter is their mental scheme. So these archaeological objects that are found with spaceships precisely in Maya style, like this, regarding these archaeological finds, the Mexican National Archaeological Institute says that they are false objects, made to cheat tourists, because there are the flying saucers. A boy that I know, his name is Alberto Donini, who among other things right at this moment is in Mexico, to dig and find other engraved stones and other archaeological artifacts. He has found some nice ones. He has brought pieces that are made in mosaic. I mean, they are many different glued stones with vegetable glue to then form figures. He had the vegetable glue analyzed. One stone gave him 20,000 years of antiquity. So there is a very ancient history of which we know nothing. It is hidden. Now, I will show pieces of a documentary that I made for RAI, which is this one here. 2012 Maya prophecies and crop circles, because at a certain point, approaching the year 2012, the extraterrestrials began to make crop circles with Maya themes, because the date of 2012 is a very important date. We have re-edited it, because it had ended. I even won a couple of prizes in the United States with it, and also in Italy with this documentary. In Italy, it was a great satisfaction because there were 600 titles in competition. There was everything, hunting and fishing, bicycle wheels, and I participated with UFOs and crop circles. I won first prize. I was astonished, I said, but how? Precisely in Italy, where everyone says that UFOs are nonsense. In an open competition, I took first prize. You can find it anyway if you want. To see it entirely, you can find it there, at the little table. So it would be this one, Maya prophecies and crop circles. So, as I said before, and we have seen them, that there exist many prophecies about the cosmic contact. But not only that this contact would have occurred in an uncertain future of humanity, but in a global condition of great suffering, possibly a thermonuclear war. Even the Maya, who were precisely lords of time, had a knowledge of time that we can only dream about, because they conceived of time differently and studied its energy. Time has its own energy, so today, every date has its own energy that they calculated with particular calendars that schematically we can reproduce in this way here, like toothed wheels that fit into each other. And this is the excerpt from the documentary that speaks about time.
There existed a people that possessed deep knowledge, a people whose messages have been handed down to us over time, a people whose prophecies have incredibly begun to take shape. They are the Maya. The eternal fascination of mystery surrounds that deep knowledge of this ancient civilization whose memory had been lost in the night of time. The Maya calendar is known and studied by dozens of researchers. Many indeed believe that it carries a prophetic message, but its deciphering is not yet complete. The Maya were convinced that time was cyclical. Every 5,125 years an era would end, simultaneously opening a new one. An event that, according to some prophecies, would be accomplished again on December 21st, 2012. An important date on which some think that determining changes would occur in man and in our planet. What is true? The term prophecy, in reality, is associated with the Maya in a not entirely correct way. The Maya, in fact, had identified regular time cycles of the functioning of the universe. Based on this knowledge, they were able to predict centuries in advance astronomical events of great scope that would have influenced entire humanity. For the calculation of these cycles, the Maya had developed a complex system of calendars that they used to harmonize their existence with the flow of events and cosmic energies. The shortest cycle, calculated by them, was of 52 years, and was obtained through the interaction of two different calendars, the sacred calendar, called Tzolk'in, and the civil calendar, called HAAB. The Tzolk'in was formed by 13 months of 20 days, for a total of 260 days, corresponding to the average duration of the human gestation. The Hab calendar was formed by 18 months of 20 days each, for a total of 360, to arrive at the duration of the solar year of 365 days. A short month of 5 days called UAYEB was added. According to their studies, our solar system makes a circular motion of approach and distance from the center of the galaxy, the Milky Way, that lasts 25,625 years. This cycle, that the Maya used to call Galactic Day, was divided by them into 5 subcycles of 5,125 years each that they considered as single eras and were called suns. The Maya remembered that already 4 suns, that is 4 cycles of 5,125 years, had passed since the beginning of the Great Cycle, or Galactic Day. So according to their calculations, we are now at the end of the era of the 5th sun, which began on August 13th, 3114 BC, and would end on December 21st, 2012. For this period, the Maya predicted new upheavals on our planet and a great spiritual renewal in human beings. The survivors would give rise to a new golden age. At the end of each sun, they theorized that a powerful flow of energy would depart from the center of the galaxy, causing a strong and anomalous solar activity with consequent planetary catastrophes. In fact, in 1997, the SOHO probe detected a flow of energy coming from the galactic center, and a few years later, the sun entered into strong activity, thus giving scientific support to what was anticipated by the Maya.
So, December 21st. Thank you. December 21st, 2012, the 5th sun ended. So from that date we entered into the 6th sun, and the 6th sun is the era that will last 5,125 years, in which upheavals occur and epochal changes never seen before on our planet. It is happening, so they got it exactly right. This is the Tzolk'in calendar. When transported onto a two-dimensional plane, generates a table you see that is commonly called today synchronarium. It represents a matrix of 260 days that, as I said, The screenplay of the documentary is mine, is the average duration of human gestation, that is 9 months. And according to the synchronarium, every day is characterized by its own energy. This calendar, as we have seen, in the form of a toothed wheel, intersects with the civil calendar, the Hab calendar, of 365 days, creating an interweaving of energies that guided the life of the Maya. And you see that comes out, what? A kind of symbol of DNA. So here we find the exemplification or the manifestation of what Hermes Trismegistus says, as above, so below. So time itself moves, as if it were a biological being. The cycles of the Maya, like 52, 5,125, and so on, are circular and once ended, the calendar starts again from the same date. I mean, they did not have a linear progression like ours. So, to make a simple example, they start from January 1st, 2000, complete a full turn, and then start again from January 1st, 2000, because they understood what the truth is. When we see the image or the drawing of the orbits of the planets around the sun, we always see ellipses, right, with the sun at the center. But that is the view from above. If I, instead of looking from above at the planets that turn around the sun, I view it sideways, the planets. These are the planets that turn around the sun. They spiral. Because while we turn around the sun, the entire solar system is traveling around the galactic center. And they don't travel flat. They travel like this. They advance in this way. So they spiral with each other. So when the cycle ends, the turn, I start again from the same point, with respect to the galactic center, but on a different space-time plane. So the date is the same, because the starting point is the same, but in a different position, and therefore also with a different energy. Is the concept clear? So linear time is a demoniac time. I mean, it creates disharmony, it creates imbalance, it creates madness. Because time is an energy, so we are always in disagreement or in disharmony with time, which is an energy that tears us apart, because it is more powerful than us. So for the Maya, the energy of the day was fundamental to program their activities. On days with negative energy, they did not make any important decisions or would do nothing at all. And this can be seen, in a way, in the concept of the Jewish Shabbat. So, on Saturday, they do nothing. Then they have extremized it to levels that practically on Saturday the elevators go up and down, you must not press the buttons because you must not do anything. And all right. And the Tzolk'in served as a guide to understand the flow of the cosmic energies of time and harmonize with them. So it was like a kind of sacred horoscope, if we want to make a comparison, with our customs that regulated daily life and spiritual practices of the Maya. To summarize them in a table, we can say that the Tzolk'in was a divinatory instrument. So the priests used it to determine the character and the destiny of people. Obviously, it was important also the date of birth. Indeed, I think that starting from next year I will begin to celebrate my Maya birthday. Enough with, because only I know it. Anyway, I met in Guatemala. Precisely in 2012, I met a Maya shaman who made me my horoscope. He told me that I am a white lunar magician. And it was consulted to choose the favorable days for important events like marriages, sowings, and wars, or religious rites. But wars. Okay. Energy of days and spiritual influence every combination of number and glyph, which are those figures that are specified and paired with each day, that represents a particular energy that influences precisely that day. So this forms that table we have seen, the synchronarium, where every day has its own particular energetic quality that can be either beneficial or unfavorable. We've seen how the interconnection with other calendars fits into the 365-day civil calendar, which is the time in which planet Earth makes one revolution around the sun. That was called Hab, and they form therefore the Maya calendar, a circular calendar of 52 years, because every 52 years they would start again from the same date, as I told you. And this had a role in the long count. The long count is the cycle of 5,125 years, also called sun. So I repeat, today we are, since December 21st, 2012, we are in the sixth sun. So, this impressive knowledge that the Maya had of time and cosmic cycles and so on allowed them, because they had understood that the flowing of time, the energy of time was linked to the manifesting white of facts, whether astronomical, human, or cosmic. And among these facts they foresaw the global contact with the extraterrestrial civilizations, the contact that they already had, or the context in which it would occur, and also what it would have meant for all of humanity. The first prophecy I will tell you about is the prophecy, precisely, of the sixth sun. So, we have seen that the galactic day, according to the Maya, that is the time in which the solar system rotates around the center of the Milky Way, is of 25,625 years, which more or less is the time of the precession of the equinoxes. The precession of the equinoxes, then, determines what are the astrological houses, the 12 zodiacal signs. So the fifth sun had begun on August 13th, 3114 BC, according to our calendar, and ended on December 21st, 2012. So the cycle of the sixth sun begun that will last another 5,125 years. About this new cycle, the Maya made precisely prophecies on the extraterrestrial contact. Considering this the galactic day, the Maya divided it into 5 phases that were like the phases of the 24-hour day, so morning, noon, afternoon, evening, night, deep night, dawn. Well, now we are in this phase here. We are coming out of the deep night. That has been the lowest, most negative energetic phase, and we are in the darkest part. But this is the one that preludes the sunrise. So, the dawn of the new era. The prophecy says, in the era of the sixth sun, everything that is occult and buried will come to light. Truth will become light and seed of life. It will be the children of the sixth sun who will travel among the stars. Let's analyze it. In the era of the sixth sun, everything that is occult and buried will come to light. In other words, starting from after 2012, December 21st, when the sixth sun begins, the secrets hidden by those in power will come to light. We are seeing this nowadays. Just a few hours ago, Pam Bondi published one of the first lists of the clients of Epstein and other things that are happening. The same disclosure of the Pentagon that begun in 2017, namely the revelation on the extraterrestrial visit, is another emblematic case. Precisely the scandals of Epstein, the latest initiatives of Donald Trump to reveal the secrets of the assassinations of John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Bob Kennedy, and September 11th attack, the secrets of the true origin of COVID, and so on, in short. This, in the era of the sixth sun, everything that is occult and buried will come to light. It is happening. Truth will become light and seed of life. This means the truths hidden for decades and now revealed, or in the process of revelation, will be the foundation on which a new humanity will develop. Because clearly the revelation of truth is an atomic bomb that destroys the very roots of negative power that has dominated and enslaved the world until today. So it gets devastated. So there will be a humanity that will live with clear awareness of spiritual and universal as well as human truths. And so it will be a humanity in which peace and justice will finally triumph. It will be the children of the sixth sun to travel among the stars. Well, it is very clear, so thanks to the leap of consciousness determined by the revelation of universal truths, previously concealed, so science of the spirit, that puts back in our hands our personal power. We, today, are like homeless people who live at Termini Station and beg for money, and do not know that we have in our pocket a lottery ticket worth €1 billion. Because our personal power cannot be taken from us. It is inherent in the spirit. So how do they cheat us? Keeping it hidden from us and filling our heads with a lot of nonsense. Do you remember the PIIGS? Who remembers the PIIGS? Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Spain, Greece. They were those who lived for free, who lived above their possibilities. And who is it that cheated and screwed over economically? The Germans, who had set up a fraud system that cost them the Nord Stream. Because Merkel conspired with the elite groups to create an economic system where they got rich, exploiting precisely us and keeping us with our heads down, accusing us that we were spendthrifts who lived above their possibilities. They cheat us with propaganda. Zelensky, great statesman. We saw him yesterday. The slaps he took from Trump and from J.D. Vance. Truth comes out. Do you know what it means for that loathsome being that is von der Leyen? I mean, this was more than the Flintstones Club on the head. Yesterday's scene between an imbecile Zelensky who says to Trump, "And you too will have troubles." Their Trump went crazy, he says. How do you go up to the president of the country that has filled you with gold, that gives you weapons, specialists, allows you to use satellites? You go to tell him to his face, "And you too will have troubles"? Are you stupid? He is really stupid. So here the great statesman who later was consoled by everyone. The sly Maloney, a classic Italian, is now playing dumb. Before she was rubbing up like a kitten, purring with Biden, smooching Zelensky, hugging him like a long-lost cousin thought dead in the war. Now disappeared. Hypocrite. My God, what riffraff. However, another important fact, time, say the Maya, is recursive. Trump tells Zelensky, "You risked gambling with World War III." Who governed at the threshold of the Second World War? Who governed Italy? The fascists. Who is there today in government at the threshold of World War III? The fascists. What does this mean? That the Italian people were stupid and have remained stupid. This is what it means. Because the function of time is repetita iuvant. You didn't understand it the first time. I repeat it for you. Let's see if you understand it the second time. Except that the first event is at a higher energetic level, the second is lower, that is more blatant. Because if you didn't understand the higher one, I make you understand it precisely like this. In other words, I simplify it for you. We have riffraff that is unpresentable. They are not statesmen. The great statesman Salvini, what did he do? He's hitting us hard with fines, changes the traffic code. Wow, a genius. Maloney? Without values. She conspires with the strongest. In fact, as soon as she saw that Biden was falling, she ran immediately to kiss Trump's ass. Immediately. In this, we are the champions, us Italians. There was the American psychic Edgar Cayce, who went into trance and saw things of the future. He was asked, Edgar, what can you tell us about Italy, about the Italian people? And he said, they sell themselves for a bowl of lentils. We pay the karma, we too of the Roman Empire. So thanks to the leap of consciousness that comes from truth, especially from these universal truths, we will live the cosmic contact because it is predicted, because the cosmic contact is the event that opens the door to the new kingdom. One will be taken, the other will be left. In the letters of Paul, the first letter to the Thessalonians, it is called the rapture of the church. It should be highlighted that the part of the prophecy of the sixth son, in which it says, beautiful this image, I made it with artificial intelligence. I told it, I wrote to it, you know you write to it. I told it, make me an image of Jesus while he explains the parable of the lamp.
I cannot do it because it is a dangerous request.
It answered me like this. I said, I understand, you are stupid. So I wrote, create an image of a young man of 30 years with a short beard and goatee, long hair, dressed in a white tunic, red cloak, blue belt, who speaks to people dressed also them, like in Galilee of 2,000 years ago, with oil lamp placed on a little table, and he is seated together with the others. Puff! I'm not joking. Like this. If it had been a girl, I would have kissed her. You are stupid. However, you are good. Look what a beautiful image. It looks like a photo from a movie. Very beautiful. It doesn't want to hear about Jesus. So the prophecy says, in the era of the sixth son, everything that is occult and buried will come to light. And it is practically identical to Jesus' prophecy that we find, for example, in Mark 4:21-22. He said to them, do you bring in a lamp to put it under a bowl or a bed? Instead, don't you put it on its stand? For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. And so Christ tells us that an era would come, as the Maya have told us, where the great secrets of good and evil would all become public knowledge. Obviously, the secrets of evil undermine its foundations, making it collapse. And this is linked to Daniel's prophecy I told you about before. But there is another prophecy, even more clear, that refers to the contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, and to the scenario in which this event would occur, and to what would happen following these events. And it is the prophecy of the Dresden Codex, which is one of the very few Maya manuscripts that survived the devastations of the Spanish. So these Europeans have done all sorts of things, and it is one of the most important documents of the ancient Maya civilization. Scholars date it to the 13th or 14th century, but in reality, they gathered, threw a coin in the air, and said, there you go, this is the date. The Maya codes, the Maya did not make books like us, but they made them like this, accordion style. There are very many informations mathematical, astronomical, and prophetic inside these very few codes. I have seen in Mexico more ancient ones, where precisely there are extraterrestrial spaceships. However, even there, they are not accepted for this reason here. In this particular page, if you can see, there is a witch, who is the old era. And then from the sun, from the moon, and from the stars, water descends on earth. Water is truth, the water of the new era. The Dresden Codex is an astronomical and religious almanac that is written on fig bark paper, folded accordion style. It is composed of 78 pages, and if you stretch it, it is just over 3.5 meters long. Here it is kept in a display case in the State Library that is also the University of Saxony of Dresden. It is thought to have been brought to Europe, either by missionaries or by collectors in the 16th century, and was donated to the library in the 18th century. Actually, the real history of how this codex came down to us is not really known, but it is considered one of the 3 authentic Maya codes. There is one that is controversial. I mean, they are not certain. These are pages of the Dresden Codex. The Maya way of drawing and writing is fascinating, at least for me. However, I believe also for you. And in these codes is evident the advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge that the Maya had, including the use of the vigesimal numerical system and of the concept of zero. We have discovered zero. The Romans did not have zero, for example. It is brought to Italy and to Europe by Fibonacci from Pisa because he took it from Arab numeration. The concept of zero is fundamental in all those calculations, including quantum physics. Without the zero, you are limited. Perhaps it is the lack of zero that made the Roman Empire fall. And it was also damaged, the Maya code, during the bombings, the Dresden code, during the bombing of the city. But it remains one of the most important codes. The page where this prophecy is found is this one here. It is page 56, or face 56. And you see, there is death warning while seated on a throne of bones. The incredible thing about this prophecy is that the Maya say that it would have started to occur in a striking way, starting from an astronomical event that they date very precisely, right above Mexico, a great eclipse. Excuse me, why can't you see it? I don't know why it is cutting off a line. Okay, let's move it up a little bit. Anyway, this figure is connected to an eclipse that would have occurred in Mexico centuries later, exactly in 1991. It is connected, obviously, since it speaks of the contact also to the prophecy of the sixth sun. The crazy thing is that the Maya have predicted, I believe with an error of very few seconds, the eclipse that occurred in Mexico precisely on the date predicted by the Maya, which is August 11th, 1991, if I am not mistaken. Is it here? It is not here, that's fine. Let's watch another piece of the documentary. Maya Prophecy and Crop Circles.
Among the most important Maya documents in which their prophecies are reported, there is surely the Dresden Codex. It is one of the 3 existing codes that escaped from the destructive fury of the conquistadores. So called after the name of the German city where it is kept, the Dresden Codex is the richest in information. It contains predictions that anticipate with astonishing exactness astronomical phenomena and events that will occur, even in a distant future. It is in this codex that one finds one of the most impressive astronomical predictions of the Maya. With centuries of advance, in fact, they had predicted with an error of just a few seconds the eclipse of August 11th, 1991. one of the most spectacular of the last century that affected the territory of Mexico. With this eclipse is associated a figure that represents death, seated on a throne of bones. It symbolizes the old era, the era that is ending. The prediction or prophecy says, "Woe to you of the earth will come the end of the jaguar nights, and the beginning of a new era, and will rise on the ashes of the previous one. And it will be the time of the encounter with the lords of the stars." The eclipse is therefore considered by the Maya as the starting point of the process that will mark the end of the old era and the encounter with the masters coming from the stars. Does it perhaps mean the contact between humanity and an alien civilization coming from the cosmos? Will it be thanks to this contact that humanity will be able to live the new golden age anticipated by the Maya?
On August 11, 1991, over Mexico City, an unidentified flying object in the shape of a disc is reported. It is the beginning of a whole series of testimonies and sightings that will affect enormously what will then become the Great Wave of Mexico. From the purely Latin American and Mexican sphere, this wave then extended to other parts of the world. Indeed, then we will see, in Belgium and also in other countries, even in the former USSR, a whole series of incredible sightings that will attract attention to the phenomenon like never before.
So, August 11th, 1991, a flying saucer stops over Mexico City, very clearly visible, metallic, in broad daylight, throughout all the phases of the eclipse. This footage was made by a gentleman who is called Aragin. You see, it is evident, obviously, these are VHS footage of the time, and the UFO was filmed by various people from Mexico City throughout all the phases of the eclipse. And during the darkness phase, the disk still remained visible because it emitted light. I went there immediately after to Mexico City, and at the television editorial office arrived over 100 videos from people. Well, Mexico City has about 20 and more million inhabitants. Over 100 people filmed the flying saucer. That in the end goes away with a hyperspace jump. Invisible to the eye, so the video was slowed down. I mean, if you watch the video at normal speed, you only see that it disappears. Instead, slowing it down a lot, the disk makes a dart, a hyperspace jump, and disappears. So the Maya had predicted that starting from that astronomical event, the extraterrestrials would have given a clear sign, which is the start. From that moment begins the greatest wave of extraterrestrial manifestation that has been seen in the modern era and has never stopped again, with footage increasingly resounding. But the exceptional thing is that the year before, the phenomenon of crop circles that had begun to manifest since the 60s, but only with circular formations. In May 1990, this figure appears where there are polygonal sections, and it is a complex figure. Nothing but simple circles had ever appeared until that moment. So, with this crop circle, specifically, the crop circle phenomenon is defined and identified as a form of communication through symbol, obviously an extraterrestrial form of communication. But first, I'll share a bit of personal history, because here I am in Swindon with Hakim Mausan, a dear friend. Now he makes a big hit. He has invited me to go to Mexico City. I heard from him the day before yesterday, because on March 19th, he will officially announce to the press the opening of his own national television. Something very, very, very important. He was already in England to make the interviews and the footage for this documentary, of which we are seeing excerpts. Here I am examining a crop circle because it can be seen. And here we have, this is an English lawyer named Gary King, who is a crop circles enthusiast and was our guide. She is the girlfriend, Paola, and he is always Jaime. I have never published the material we recorded that year there. Sooner or later, I will do it. This is one of the videos that Mosan then published. We had a drone with which we did the filming. Before they were done from helicopters or light aircraft, with the advent of drones, obviously everything. There was also Giorgio Bongiovanni. We see him here with us. It was a trip. She is an intruder.
How many times have you been in these wheat fields here in England?
This is the second time I come here, and it is really an emotion and being inside such extraordinary communicative phenomenon, surely from another civilization, because the physical characteristics, energetic and symbolic characteristics of this phenomenon tell us with absolute certainty that it is a non-human phenomenon. A bit behind the scenes. And the crop circles too, which are obviously made by extraterrestrials, announce the contact. This is the pictogram. They are also called pictograms agroglyphs, which are, let's say, more technical terms. Crop circles is a bit... It comes from that person who was seen in the middle of the field and one said, "Oh, what are you looking for in the wheat?" "I'm looking for circles." And so from there, it became crop circles. In reality, it was, "What are you looking for in the wheat?" "I am looking for circles." Terrible Italian joke, I know. May 23rd, 1990. This symbol appears that confirms to the researchers that the phenomenon was a phenomenon in itself, because until that moment there appeared small circles, relatively small. Consider that this is the track that the tractor leaves, so a human being is big, perhaps like the pointer light. They are dozens of meters. But compared to figures even of 90,000 square meters that have appeared anyway, they are small. Small circles appeared since the 60s. And since there were cases like that of Billy Meyer, who had shown landing points of spaceships in the meadows of Switzerland where he had his contacts with the Pleiadians, with that beautiful babe who is Semyase. I have known Meyer's son, who was called Methuselah Meyer. The mother was Greek, so Meyer's wife was Greek. She looked like the personification of Popeye's girlfriend, Olivia. Semyase was a stunning girl, tall, blonde, very curvaceous. Meyer had fallen in love with her. And Methuselah told me that there were terrible family fights because of this fact. And so this crop circle appears that breaks with the purely circular pattern until that moment. Even the first researchers who gave international fame to the phenomenon were the English engineer Colin Andrews and the researcher Pat Delgado. Colin Andrews has been almost a friend, let's say. We have spent time together quite a lot in the 90s. And they made one of the first publications when crop circles were still only circles. Indeed, it was called Circular Evidence. The book was a bestseller and was also read by the Queen of England, it is known. From there, then, the phenomenon. It is understood, however, that it was not a phenomenon aside from the UFO phenomenon. I mean, they were not landing traces of flying saucers. In fact, they called them UFO nests. In reality, it was a standalone phenomenon, and it was a communicative phenomenon through symbol, and this symbol precisely announces the contact. That would have occurred. Because, you see, there is still a little piece missing. For it to connect and form this symbol, that means union between heaven and earth, or communication between heaven and earth, where this is the earth and this is the sun. Here we see it carved in a rock, so a symbol of the ancient terrestrial cultures that evidently had contacts with the solar deities. But the extraordinary thing that connects this crop circle and others to the subject of Maya prophecies is because on the sides of the figure, union between heaven and earth, there is the Maya number 10, 10 plus 10. This is the Maya 10. These are Maya numerations. There are 20 digits, and they used a vigesimal system. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a line, 6 is a line and a dot, and so on. So, this crop circle marks, we have said that it is May 23rd, 1990. It is announcing that there's little time left before the beginning of the last Maya Katun. The Maya Katun is a unit of time of 20 years. So, the circle announces that soon the last Katun will begin. That would bring us to 2012. So from 1992 to 2012, we would enter into the full process. That would lead to the contact. Sorry, 10 plus 10 and 1992 is 2012. Yes, correct. 20 years. We would enter into the full process that would lead to the contact with the Lords of the Stars, therefore confirming the Maya prophecy of the Dresden Codex, so the union between heaven and earth. Dash would begin its final phase starting, it would conclude in the sixth sun after 2012, and it would begin the year after with the eclipse that occurred in Mexico. And that year, other pictograms of union between heaven and earth appeared. This other one also has the Maya 2010 plus 10, and others appeared. This one even made such a sensation and was the largest ever appeared until then, and became the cover photo of this Led Zeppelin album. From that moment, the escalation of sightings has never stopped, and we have also reached the photographs. This is a flying saucer photographed by Juanito Juan in Mexico City. Within this process, obviously, we include the subject of drones. That are not drones, and this is evident from the events that occurred, which I've talked about in detail. However, between mid-November 2024 and January 2025, a very large and incredible wave of sightings of anomalous aircraft began, which often had the typical characteristics of common terrestrial drones. It affected the entire planet Earth, but especially the United States of America, and the focus was New Jersey. This is a graph, a map, that tells us that starting from November 13th, 2024, only in New Jersey and surroundings, after a month there had been over 620 reports of these vehicles, of these drones. And obviously not everyone who spots them makes a report, so there are many more, so more than 620 sightings in about a month. Let's see the video of that frame that I saw. Except that they were not, in quotes, normal drones. They are flying objects of large dimensions, some as big as cars, others even as big as buses. And we only have war drones so big And they certainly don't fly at the height of house roofs. And some even mimic the sound of conventional drones, but they were not conventional drones. And now let's see a video. That is a small review of the sightings to demonstrate that in reality, the sightings were worldwide. Many are classic UFO sightings. They're not related to drones at all, so-called drones, like this one we have seen. England. Look, video. 3 static objects in the sky in formation. Arizona. United States. Look at these, how low they are, still above the house roofs. They are enormous. Look at the houses, look, the objects. Here we are in the United States, indeed. Here we have this object that ascends toward the sky, faster and faster until it disappears. Do you see how fast it is? This has nothing to do with a drone. Cordoba, Argentina, look here how many there were. Mexico. Tuxtepec, Oaxaca, November 18th, 2024. In this case, these objects could look like drones, but they are large. And here, Medellin, Colombia, November 28th, 2024. An entire squadron. A lot of bad words.
Esta weá se fueron, se salieron del foco. ¿Pelo?
Tengo todos los pelos parados, contra tu...
Langley, Virginia, here there is a very important base. Look at the object. It disappears here, reappears here, disappears here, reappears here. This is Tehran. Iran, obviously, always November of last year. So the wave was impressive, but more impressive are the official declarations that the Biden administration gave. Now we'll have a good laugh because actually they were desperate. You see the sightings? Then they expanded from the New Jersey area, which is here gradually. They involved various other states, especially in the area of very important military installations, even nuclear ones, which are obviously areas of very high protection. So here we have California, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, State of New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia and Florida. Forbes writes, unexplained reports of drones flying over New York. New York Airport was also blocked due to the presence of these objects above the airport, and obviously in the media in America chaos broke out. Here in Italy, very little of what happened came through. This is a small cross-section of the dozens and dozens of newscasts that were broadcast in the United States because people saw these vehicles above their houses and got scared. They say, but what's happening? And so, they called the governors, they called the institutions, they called the journalists, who anyway, as much as America can be hated for all the troubles it causes in the world, there the press is more courageous than the Italian one, which is completely subservient and eager to please their masters. I mean, with shameless lies, they are really unwatchable.
We are tracking the mysterious drones being spotted across the country. The question on so many Americans' minds, who is controlling these drones and why?
Okay, now back to those drone sightings, which continue to spark concerns across the country, with more videos being posted every night.
Natasha, well, these drone sightings are causing panic across the country as more states report seeing them in the sky and even over military installations.
The mystery widens. Today, people in the New York metro area are reporting a growing number of drone sightings in their communities following a wave of mysterious drone appearances in the skies over New Jersey.
The FBI says it's received more than 3,000 tips from the public about drone sightings going back to November 18th.
The sightings began last month in New Jersey with reports of large drones, some the size of a car, flying at night. Since then, they've appeared in New York, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and
this is sparking significant concern among residents and local and state leaders. The White House and the FBI says there is no evidence that the drones pose a national security threat or have a foreign connection, but that's only adding to the confusion.
Mystery drones even temporarily shutting down a New York airport Friday night, causing New York Governor Hochul to say this has gone too far.
So far, there are no explanations as to what they are, where they're coming from, or who is launching them. For weeks now, the drones have been spotted over homes, critical infrastructure, and sensitive government sites.
So what's going on? Is this some contagious mass hysteria? Or are people really seeing something that our government cannot identify?
Here, the journalistic services say sensitive military sites. Among these military sites, it's not like they are the Carabinieri barracks of Porto Sant'Elpidio. This is a site, the World Zone, a military site that deals with military facts. The drone incursions closed the airspace of Wright-Patterson Air Base Friday night. Wright-Patterson Air Base is one of the most important American bases. Now, if there's really a sign saying Military Zone No Entry at the Carabinieri station, just imagine what's here. These places are heavily protected by surveillance systems and anti-aircraft defenses. Drones. I mean, there is everything. To prevent someone unauthorized from flying over this base, and instead, not being able to chase away the intruders, what do? They close the airspace. Here we have a communication between the control tower of Wright-Patterson Base and a helicopter that was returning. And just listen.
Sentite un po'. Sentite un po'.
Flight 8 Patterson Tower, use extreme caution for heavy UAS movement on the base. Security forces is handling the situation. Suggest at or above 1700 AGL.
That we will maintain 2000 and on our transition for Med Flight 8.
And I gotta keep the lights down so that security forces can see.
Roger that, no problem, thank you.
All aircraft use extreme caution. Patterson class Delta is now closed for heavy UAS activity.
Non sappiamo cosa fare, chiudiamo bottega.
We don't know what to do, let's shut it down. So this means that a foreign power has defeated the United States of America, because their most important military bases can be flown over with impunity by unidentified aerial vehicles. But this also happened in the most important American bases in England, where there are also atomic weapons. Fairford, Mildenhall, Feltwell, and Lakenheath were closed due to overflights of these drones. But then we must add Ramstein in Germany. The English aircraft carrier Queen Elizabeth was flown over by these vehicles without anyone being able to do anything about it, even the White House and the Capitol. Daily Star. Flashing spheres of light filmed over Washington, D.C. and spotted in the no-fly zone. I mean in the no-fly zone, which is the most watched airspace of the entire planet, seat of the American government, the Capitol and the White House, seat of the presidential palace. It was flown over, not just flown over, They were just hovering in the sky. So they violated the airspace and nobody did anything. And they are not lights. Now we see the videos. They have the classic shape of flying saucers. They are two videos made by two people who have seen the objects and filmed them from different points of Washington. Let's listen to them first in English and then in Italian. Do you see the still objects? The Capitol is here on the right. Now here it is not seen. Between the Capitol and the White House there are 3.5 kilometers. They are very close, so the objects are right, in that space. Where is forbidden? It cannot be flown over. Flown over by anyone, let alone by... Look at the object.
Oh
my gosh, did you see that? There was one that just lit up. And then there's one on the right.
There's another one. Here's the Capitol.
That seems to slowly be moving towards the Capitol building.
Let's see the other one. The other one is closer to the Capitol and can be seen more clearly.
They're not moving. They're staying stationary.
It's from another angle, you see. The object is discoidal ellipsoidal, let's say so. They are not small lights. They are objects of large dimensions. Now the gentleman who is filming, who is talking with his girlfriend, points to a plane, goes to film it, looks for it. Here it is. This is a plane. Here the Capitol can be seen very well. This is another plane.
Okay. Over there is, but look at that one. And I'm saying, like, when you look to the left of the Capitol, those are not moving.
Here the objects are still.
I'm telling you. They're here.
Can we go back in the car?
She gets scared.
Lo shock dello scimmione.
The shock of the caveman, who has been culturally manipulated and therefore thinks that all these speeches are nonsense, when he sees them with his own eyes, it is a cultural shock. I mean, you say, but how? So everything I knew was bullshit. Yes, it was bullshit. This is John Kirby, advisor for communication on national security of the White House. On December 12th, so after the facts also of the White House, before Wright-Patterson base was blocked. Kirby, obviously under pressure from the governors who were furious as hell. Then I will prepare a seminar because so far I have only shown the tip of the iceberg of all the documentation that we have collected, which really, I showed some of it at Red Ronnie's program and some in other interviews, but there is lots of videos that I would like to see where there is something very important. There is a mayor who filmed the drones. Filmed the UFOs that become drones. In other words, they transform. First, they are objects of light or spherical or elliptical, so the classic UFO. Then, they start to sprout wings, they start to flash little lights, and this mayor filmed 2 of them. But it is a fact that has been known since the 50s because contactees talked about it, like Orfeo and Gelucci. So John Kirby, just listen, says everything and the opposite of everything. December 12th, 2024.
I just want to add a few comments on the reports of drone activity here on the East Coast, particularly in and around New Jersey. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources using numerous detection methods to better understand their origin. Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Now, that said, we certainly take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight a gap in authorities. And so we urge Congress to pass important legislation that will extend and expand existing counter-drone authorities so that we are better prepared to identify and mitigate any potential threats to airports or other critical infrastructure, and so that state and local authorities are provided all the tools that they need to respond to such threats as well.
So in my opinion, this speech was written by Donald Duck after taking a poor NLP course. No threat to national security, to public safety, no evidence that there are involvements of foreign powers, not even from American coasts, because the rumor had spread that there were Russian or Iranian ships that were shooting drones near the coasts of the United States, as if a Russian or Iranian ship could approach the coast and nobody would say anything, no? They used sophisticated detection equipment, but they couldn't figure out what the hell it was. They are crude aircraft operating legally. But how? There are no drone sightings in any restricted airspace. But if they blocked Wright-Patterson, the White House, the Capitol, then he changes and says the opposite. We take seriously the threat posed by unmanned aerial systems. But then are they legal? Are they not legal? Are they foreign powers? No threat to national security? So first, they are not a threat. Then he says they take the threat seriously. It's crazy. The sightings have highlighted gaps in the authorities, I would say. It is necessary to expand anti-drone authorities to be able to respond to such threats. Sorry, but aren't you the most sophisticated military power on the planet? So, this gentleman has said so many bullshit things that it is shameful. I mean, really, it is PNL, a very poor level. This is the most important base of the Marines of the United States of America. It is called Marine Corps Base Quantico. This is one of the entrances. There are several, you see. It's enormous. There are many training schools. So, MCB Quantico Marine Corps Base is one of the most important military installations of the United States of America. It is located between two small communities, which are that of Triangolo, which means precisely triangle, Quantico, in the state of Virginia. Here the Marine Corps are trained, and also the Navy SEALs, the Special Corps of the Marines, and also members of some federal law enforcement forces, including, the most important is certainly the FBI. So there is an academy, also of the FBI, that deals with recruitment and training of agents. The drones, with impunity. They flew with impunity over this heavily monitored base. And who says so? The governor of Virginia says so. On January 9th, 2025, so Trump, elected president, Trump has a meeting at Mar-a-Lago, his residence, outside the Trump Tower, from which he left because his security services discovered that it was infested with bugs of the CIA and other agencies that were spying on Trump to prevent him from becoming president. So he packed up his bags and baggage and went to Mar-a-Lago to his house. And next to him, there is Glenn Youngkin, who is the governor of Virginia, who answers the question of this Fox journalist, who is called Peter Doocy. First of all, Trump's first reaction is funny. Just listen.
Do you have any idea whatever happened to the drones?
What happened to drones?
Well, you had said that you thought the government knew what was happening with these drones over New Jersey. There were some by Bedminster.
I don't know. They were over Bedminster a lot. So
what happened?
I'm going to give you a report on drones about 1 day into the administration, because I think it's ridiculous that they're not telling you about what's going on with the drones. And it's not only with me. Glenn was telling me today that in Virginia they have drones all over the place too, and nobody's reporting it. I don't know why they're not. Do you want to say something about that?
Just one quick comment, which is we are home to the largest naval base in the world in Quantico, and we house a lot of the SEAL teams and have a huge national security infrastructure. And now for 2 years running, we have had drone incursion over secure airspace, and we still don't know why. And I think that's absolutely unacceptable. And I think President Trump and the new leadership coming in, I think will work diligently to understand who's behind this and what we do in order to stop the digital surveillance of all of our secure infrastructure.
Is it dangerous?
Well, I can tell you this. While we were dealing with a terrorist attack in New Orleans, we had drones being flown over our nuclear reactors in Louisiana. And we brought that attention to the FAA. We've been asking the FAA to give these states the ability to mitigate these drones, and it's sitting on some bureaucrat's desk. And that's real. Nobody knows. They don't want to talk about it. Go ahead, Governor, you were going to say? I was just going to say we have drones in Wyoming flying over our infrastructure as well. And it's incredibly frustrating that we not only have no way of knowing what it is, but nobody knows how to deal with them. They don't want to talk about it, and nobody knows why. They don't want to talk about it. That could be us sending drones. I hope that's the case, us doing it and doing research, and maybe they don't want to talk about it from that standpoint. I hope it's not an enemy, but we're going to find out on the 21st, the day after. You have to give me a little time for the inauguration, but shortly thereafter we'll give you a report on it. We'll tell you exactly what it is. They know, and it's very strange that they aren't talking about it.
So practically, the outgoing administration through John Kirby spouts a bunch of lies, and in this meeting various governors, including him, the most important Youngkin, who talks about Quantico and says from 2 years. So Kirby lies shamelessly when he says, we haven't had problems in security installations. Then he speaks. I can't remember his name. They are all governors of the various states, Wyoming. So something impressive happened, but analyzing Youngkin's words. First of all, Trump says that the drones were often above Bedminster, which is the seat of his golf club. There is the Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, and it was often flown over by these objects. This is a very important fact because then there is an extraterrestrial message that explains what happened. And then he says that the day after, or a few days after the assignment, he would have revealed everything about the drones and that it was ridiculous that the Biden administration kept silent about the truth to the American people. And then he turns it over to Youngkin, saying that in Virginia there are many sightings and nobody talks about it. He said nothing. He was silent. Evidently, he understood that the truth is shocking. However, he established that task force, headed by that beautiful girl, Deputy Anna Paulina Luna, who will tell the truth about UFOs, among various things. UFO, September 11th. The virus. The killings of Kennedy, Bob and John, Martin Luther King, Epstein's clients, I mean a real epical revolution. And Youngkin says that Quantico is the seat of the largest naval base in the world, in which there are many Navy SEALs teams, the Special Corps of the Marines, and enormous security systems. Despite this, for 2 years, the airspace protected by the base has been violated by these drones, and nobody can justify it. So actually, in the media, this thing came out between November and end of year, early January of this drone invasion, but it has been lasting for some time already. Recently, this gentleman, on January 25th, attended the hearing of the Committee on Armed Services, which is an organ of the American Congress, both House of Representatives and Senate, and deals with issues related to defense, to the armed forces, to national security. So obviously he too was asked questions about drones by politicians. And he is General Gregory Guillot of the USAF, and he gave further and impressive data related to the wave of drones. Then they talk about many other things in this hearing, terrorism, but we extracted the part that refers to the drone subject, to the impressive revelations or declarations of General Guillot. Behind the questions that a politician asks him. Hearing to receive the deposition on the intention of the Northern Southern Command of the United States, etc., etc.
Thank you, gentlemen. General Guillot, as the chairman mentioned in his opening statements, I have legislation with Senator Gillibrand to address the drone threat here in America. We seem to have drones just flying around everywhere, and many times people don't know what's going on, most notably in the public eye late last year in New Jersey. This is also happening around our military bases a lot. You've had drone incursions over Joint Base Langley, Wright-Patt Air Force Base, Vandenberg Space Force Base, Picatinny Arsenal, Anderson Air Force Base. Could you explain to us briefly what is the threat that these drones pose to U.S. military operations, facilities, and personnel?
Senator, the primary threat I see for them in the way they've been operating is detection and perhaps surveillance of sensitive capabilities on our installations.
And that's all installation, not just super sensitive ones like nuclear sites. It could be our fighter bases or Army bases or naval bases or what have you.
Yes, sir. There were 350 detections reported last year on military installations, and that was 350 over a total of 100 different installations of all types and levels of security.
Yeah. But it's the case right now that only at certain sites, which you might call the super sensitive sites, like nuclear bases, do commanders have the authority to protect their airspace from these drone incursions.
That's correct, Senator. We call those covered installations, and not all about half are covered.
Which sounds crazy to me, and I think most Americans would think it doesn't show a lot of common sense. I mean, base commanders at every base around America, they have the authority and they have the capability to protect their perimeters. Say if some terrorists got a dump truck and drove it through the front gate, or were trying to breach the perimeter fence, we would expect base commanders to protect their base with force if necessary. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir, and I would propose and advocate for expansion of 130I to include all military installations, not just covered installations.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I have legislation to do just that, the counteract with Senator Gillibrand, that again would give these commanders the legal authority they need, plus the capability required to protect their bases from these kinds of incursions, and then hold them accountable for doing so. Is that exactly what you're advocating for?
That is, sir, and if I could add, I'd also like to see the range expanded to slightly beyond the installation, so they don't have to wait for the threat to get over the installation before they can address it, because many of these systems can use side-looking or slant range, and so they could surveil the base from outside the perimeter, and under the current authorities, we can't address that.
Sorry, now I interrupt for a moment. I mean, the drones fly over your head, inside the base, and you want systems to see them when they arrive from outside. But what can you do? They have already entered your house. I mean, these are shocked people. In other words, they don't make the connection because the reality is so shocking that it leaves them disoriented.
Even better. Now, last year you also said there were thousands of drone incursions over the southern border. Now, I know that this is primarily a DHS responsibility at the southern border, but do you need authorization for DOD to share information with DHS and the border authorities about these incursions?
Yes, Senator. I would like 130I to be expanded to allow seamless exchange of data on drones.
Again, sounds like a great idea. I'm glad that Senator Gillibrand and I have legislation to do just that, and I hope that we can pass it into law this year. Thank you, Admiral.
So, there have been drone intrusions over the Joint Base Langley, very important, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Vandenberg Space Force Base. Among other things, some of these, like Patterson and Vandenberg, are bases where they had, or still have flying saucers and extraterrestrial bodies. The Picatinny Arsenal Anderson Air Force Base. So, Kirby, negative, thumbs down. General Guillot says 350 detections in 2024. He doesn't say those of 2025, in 100 different installations of all types and security levels. America has lost the war with the aliens. There's not much you can do. All the most important military installations have been violated. They did nothing, including the overflight of the Capitol. Then Senator Cotton makes a stupid and obvious example, however, that we have seen in many films at the cinema. He says, but if some terrorist took a truck and drove it through the main gate, obviously breaking it down, and was trying to violate the perimeter fence, we would expect the base commanders to protect it with force. Is that correct? He says yes, and then these drones, why don't you stop them? Because they cannot stop them. And Cotton also says that last year, so 2024, there were thousands of drone intrusions on the southern border. So John Kirby really spouts a bunch of nonsense, all this situation. Local officials ask for answers. They were enraged. I'll let you hear one. Who says the obvious? I mean, it ties to what then Cotton said. This is Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut. Just listen to what he says.
Take them out of the skies, especially if they're flying over airports or military bases. They should be shot down if necessary.
They must immediately disclose more information to the public. It's totally and completely unacceptable.
It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat.
Thus far, in this early stage of the investigation, there's just no national security threat that we see and no public safety risk.
Pinocchio. So, he said, obviously. He says, shoot them down. Why don't they shoot them down? There is a video shot in Iran. It is a fact that always concerns the United States, that makes you understand. The video is from July 15, 2023, in the city of Bandar-e-Anzali in Iran, which is the site of an important port. It is a port city. Just look. What happens when they attack them? They tried to shoot these drones down. But what they got is this right here. This is the UFO.
Questo è l'UFO.
The projectiles explode near the object.
Allahu Akbar. يا برود 17/5/2013 اللهم عليك ببشار الأسد ومن يواليه يا رب.
This is from inside the city, the video. This is the object. The Iranian Ministry of Defense, questioned about these facts, said that light was a flare, and they were doing an exercise, which is well known. Flares remain still in the sky and are invulnerable to projectiles. So this is the explanation for why, in fact, at the White House, they didn't attack them, because there is a fact that dates back to 19th, 20th, 25th, and 26th, 27th July 52, and to a lesser extent August 2nd and 3 of 52, when again, the airspace of the Capitol and the White House, most protected airspace in the world, was flown over by flying saucers. In that case, they launched fighters, because we are in 52. And there were extensive journalistic reports, you see. This is the Washington Post of July 28th of 52. It says, a saucer, UFO, outran jet, pilot reveals. The accelerations of UFOs went from 160 to 500 kilometers per hour to 10,000 in very few seconds. Developing G-forces, therefore anti-gravitational forces impossible to tolerate for any pilot. In this article of July 29th, the Herald News, two titles of great interest are read. The biggest says, Jets told to shoot down flying discs. And therefore in this case we are talking precisely about flying saucers and not drones. Then, technically it is correct because extraterrestrial unmanned drones exist. So it's not that they lied. In the current situation they told the truth, but they didn't say whose these drones are. And so, it says, jets told to shoot down flying discs, but they didn't succeed. The Air Force puzzled, but no longer skeptical. In other words, it believes in UFOs. Since the overflights were so important that there was enormous fear in the population, and therefore, the press reported all these facts, and at that point the Pentagon was forced to intervene. And the one who spoke in a press conference on July 29th of 52 was General John Samford, who was the head of the Secret Services of the American Military Aviation, John Alexander Samford. A press conference was held at the Pentagon, and here we hear what Samford says.
E qui sentiamo cosa dice Samford.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
Quindi John Samford
So John Samford tells the truth. Above all, he says, however, there has been a certain percentage of these reports that have been made by credible observers regarding relatively incredible things. And it is this group of incredible observations, but credible thanks to the witnesses, that at this moment we are trying to solve. It's obvious who Samford considers credible observers, right? The fighter jet pilots who tried to shoot down the UFOs, to follow them, and they didn't succeed. Keep in mind that the Sabre fighters, these are the ones that took off. They reached 946 kilometers per hour because The first supersonic planes will be given to the Army 2 years later, in '54. So, they know very well that they cannot shoot down UFOs. In fact, when I entered the Russian military base in '94, the commander of the atomic base told us, if we threw confetti or candies, it was the same because we shot with everything we had in the base, but they were invulnerable, and so we are afraid. I'm closing. Let's see. 3 films of these drones, which are clearly UFOs. Here, many of these aircraft that have the appearance of light objects then became drones, and already Melham, who is the mayor of New Jersey, who filmed them precisely while they transform into drones, like ours. Do you see how the object moves erratically?
That's not... What's up with my camera? I had to go run in and get my camera.
Look how it starts again. It stops suddenly, so it has a whole series of maneuvers that obviously demonstrates that it cannot be in any way a terrestrial drone. Look how it illuminates the tree branches. It decreases its light, increases it.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, says the witness. It rises high. Beautiful, this sighting. Another is a classic triangular UFO. With green lights widely sighted in Belgium in the '90s, also in this case the Belgian military aviation tried to chase them and shoot them down, but the accelerations were impossible.
This is a video of the Morris County drones with characteristic triangle lights on the back.
There is a drone with triangular lights. Beautiful video. The last one is in New Jersey, also this one, Hampton, and it was recorded by a security camera. Here are 2 classic UFOs, you see, that pass in front of the camera of this house. At this point, let's see. The scope of the sightings. This is the map that shows the sightings over the United States of America. Let's say these, statistically, the green ones are the current sightings. So the United States are under constant control of extraterrestrial aviation because it is from there that can start the nuclear attack on Russia and China. Do you see how few there are in the other areas? We have a bit intense here in Mexico City. Here there is Puerto Rico. You see how many there are, where there are very important American military bases. Costa Rica. And who is here? The English. So United States, England, which are the satanic and violent heart of NATO that wants to attack. Russia and China with atomic weapons are under control of extraterrestrial aviation. And it is this character, Mr. Adonisis, who in a message that is given to Giorgio Bongiovanni, who explains what is happening. Message of December 18th, 2024.
Adonisis, the immortal, speaks to you. Attention. Attention, powerful ones of the earth. Listen, friends and people of the world. The starships that visibly fly over the skies of the United States of America and of many nations of your planet are of extraterrestrial origin, and their pilots are our brothers belonging to the civilization by us denominated APUs. Their mission is by us, light beings, directed so that with their non-interceptible military presence they give proof to the powers of the earth that it would be a very serious error to undertake a nuclear war between 2 or more nations of your world. The brothers of Apus, by you denominated Greys, have transmitted to us solar genii of the Confederation, A very clear report on the nefarious projects of the criminal system in force, especially in the USA. A military report that concerns a project of attack on the next president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and on one of his ministers, Robert Kennedy Jr. Such project has the purpose of replacing President Trump, who does not want the third nuclear war, with a military regime that proposes to attack Russia and China with nuclear weapons. We have given orders to our APU's brothers to neutralize such diabolical program. Pay attention. These extraterrestrial pilots are ready to destroy all nuclear bases and all silos that possess missiles with atomic warheads. Of all nations that possess thermonuclear weapons, it would be wise for you, powerful heads of the anti-Christian criminal system, to accommodate our request for peace. Your world lives in pain, in war, in hatred, and in violence. But as long as there are among you just, peaceful human beings, good and missionaries, it is our duty to give hope and faith to a change for a better world. We want to remember, however, that in a few years, the great monarch Jesus Christ will revisit your world to put in place the universal judgment and the establishment of his kingdom and of his Father on earth. Kingdom in which the elect and all the good and just chosen by them will be able to undertake to live under a new sky and inhabit a new earth where peace, love, and justice will reign supreme. Peace, I am Adoniasis, the commander, with universal love.
This gentleman is the one who ate the steak with Abraham. It's true, it's him, the eternal, the immortal, who has decided that here, also here, there will be the kingdom. He speaks of the APUs. There is a document that connects to the APUs, who have the particularity of traveling with white starships of ovoid shape. The event happened. This is a reproduction with artificial intelligence. It happened to Ronnie Hill, a 14-year-old boy, on July 21, 1967 in Pamlico County in North Carolina. He sees this object arriving. He lived in a house on the edge of a wood. The object lands. A being about 1.20 meters tall comes out, approaches toward him. He runs inside the house, takes a Polaroid, which was not a Polaroid, something like a Polaroid. Now I don't remember exactly the type of camera, and takes a photo. Takes a picture of the being. The photo is this one here. The being has a dark object in his hand. He is dressed with a silver suit. Behind you can see the UFO that is about 3 meters high and 6 meters long. You see the wood, the meadow. The being sticks this object into the ground, then goes away, climbs back on the object that disappears. This is an enlargement of the photo, you see? You can see the eyes are enormous. The head has a helmet with equipment. The suit is very tight. It is quite slim. I mean, the head is disproportionate. And curiously, very recently, journalist Ross Coulthart, who has been dealing for years already with the revelation about extraterrestrial truth, on January 15, 2025, the message is from December 18th, makes an extraordinary scoop, which now I show you a piece of.
The message is, it's time for the public to be told the truth. The government, or sections of the government, have been knowingly, intentionally lying to the public for years, and if they want a fight, they can have one, because people are now prepared to come forward. This week, you're going to hear from a first-hand whistleblower. Let's have a listen. So tell me about the moment when you realised that you were involved in a retrieval of non-human technology, alien tech.
So it became very clear the first time our communication process and procedure was modified. And then just visually looking at the object on the ground, you could tell that it was extraordinary and anomalous. It was not human.
How close did you get?
Well, I was a helicopter pilot, and I operate with 150 foot to 200 foot long line. So I got within 150 feet of this object.
What did you see?
I saw an egg, a white egg.
This is a piece of the video that shows the UFO harnessed, the cable tied to Jake Barber's helicopter, that they are taking it away. So it is one of the many extraterrestrial flying objects that the government of the United States has recovered, and that it studies to reverse engineer it. I remember that the first flying saucer recovered by the Americans, of which we have information through military documents, dates back to 1941, so to the first years of the Second World War. So, it was a UFO of the APUs, because it is the same as the one photographed by Ronnie Hill, identical. And here there is a beautiful video that was recorded in Australia a few years ago, where a starship of the APUs stations in the sky, it seems to me, for 8 hours. The witness has a professional camera mounted on a tripod and films it for the entire duration of its manifestation. And you see, an ovoid object still in the sky. There's audio if you give it to me. You see, he widened the shot for a moment. We saw the trees. The object clearly emits light, so it's surrounded by a magnetic vortex, which is the system they use, one of the systems. Together with the witness, there's the wife and the daughter.
You can't see the colours from here.
Yeah.
Well, that's full high definition. I'm getting.
The video became part of MUFON's archives.
Which is the one which goes.
Can you zoom?
That's as far as I can zoom.
Oh,
and I've even got
A plane passes by.
There's the high. Oh, okay. Well, it's just.
Oh, look, there's something going past it. Look.
He can't see well. He goes, "What is it?"
That was a plane.
Was that a plane?
There's an airplane.
They definitely see it.
You can see
They
it.
definitely see what.
I can't see it without my glasses. I need
Yeah,
glasses.
it's a plane.
Is that a plane?
Yeah, it's a plane.
In the sky. And it's not doing a goddamn.
This is towards the final phase. You see, now it starts to get dark. The object is always there, luminous.
Yeah, I was having a cigarette. I thought, oh my God.
They even have a little chair at this point. You see the object darker and darker, perfectly motionless in the sky. The witness zooms in. Beautiful. Since there's no sunlight, the light is more on the yellow. I remember that space beings have the possibility to vary the frequency of matter and transform it into energy in a reversible way, from matter to energy, even the biological one, from energy to matter. And when they have to travel and also overcome the speed of light, they project themselves as masses of energy. Beautiful video. It's part of MUFON's archives, which is a very important American research center. Actually, they are the APU that operate on our planet. Let's say they are the military wing, the one we call the Greys, as the message says. Here, the object at a certain point simply vanishes. I mean, it's not that it went away. It vanishes. It becomes invisible. The original footage lasts 40 minutes, which the witness reduced because he was there, you see, for hours. You see, it disappeared. Well, I close this presentation. We could still talk about it. There are many other things related to the topic of APU. You'll find them in the documentary because these things are closely connected to crop circles. So if you want, I would like to leave space for questions, but before closing, I have two really important documents that concern the APU. One concerns the flyover of the Capitol in '52, and one the flyover of the Capitol. That happened in November of last year. Here it is. The second one, don't be scared because it's a bit more aggressive, but
we kicked their ass.
Thank you. With artificial intelligence, I have a lot of fun. Everything that used to be in my imagination, I can do now. Well, let's not forget, however, all of this is the prelude to this here. Before the king, all armies will kneel, all of them, and everyone will have to pay an account for his deeds. Revelation 22:12. Behold, I am coming soon and bring with me the recompense. I will give to each according to his deeds. Long live the APU and long live Jesus. Watch the documentary because there are very, very important things still related to the APU. Do you want this one?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, we have about half an hour for questions. I would have liked to finish earlier, but the material is very important, and it had to be explained. In Italy, almost nothing of all this has arrived. So really important things are happening. Is there someone who passes the microphone? I sit down because I'm tired. The APU are cute, eh? Are there two microphones, guys? Voice to the microphone. Microphone, microphone. The microphone doesn't work.
Pier Giorgio, can you tell me what you think about Stephen Greer?
Hi, Pier.
Yes.
My name is Stephen.
Steven?
Stephen.
Stephen. Stephen. Hi, Stephen. We already talked.
Yes.
Yes.
So I've been following you for about 2 months. You have changed my life in so many aspects.
Yes, I understand.
Very positive ones. And I had a question about reincarnation.
Yes.
I know that when the spirit abandons the body,
Yes.
certain people decide, according to their mission, to reincarnate. Shortly after their physical death, after they have abandoned the body and other people, much later.
Yes.
Like the Atlanteans, for example, who, as you said in an episode of Karma and Reincarnation, decide or have decided to reincarnate right now.
Yes.
In the modern era. So, what determines whether a person is reborn or chooses to be reborn, earlier or later?
When we are in the afterlife, we decide nothing. In the afterlife, we lose free will. In other words, we no longer have any possibility to make choices. And we must undergo unchangeably the effects of our actions during life. So it is the balance established by the law and the beings in charge of the analysis or judgment of your deeds who determine your destiny. So we don't have the possibility, because we are still not very evolved. We cannot program a reincarnation. So, in the most primitive conditions of little evolved spirits, which is the majority of current society, this happens without anyone even intervening. It happens by automatism of the law that measures the frequency that you have, and based on the frequency, it destines you to a condition of rebirth, based on how you operated in the incarnation. Then, that you reincarnate immediately or after centuries or after millennia. It always depends on the karma that you have matured, either in the positive or in the negative. Let's say that there are cases, for example, in cases of violent death, if you couldn't fulfill because an accident happened, you couldn't fulfill your life program. If the death is violent, you reincarnate immediately to finish it, to complete it. Or, for example, the people from whom organs have been explanted, who are explanted when the person is alive, because the organs of a dead person cannot be awakened to new life. So in fact, when there's the explantation, the person is killed, he's alive. This is not said. And since, from the moment of death, the spirit needs 72 hours to absorb from the organs the experiences that were made during life. So if you remove the organ while he is alive, that person is forced to be reborn to repeat those experiences that were taken away from him. In fact, for example, many heart transplant recipients fall out of love with their family and fall in love with the family of the donor. Because in that heart, in his heart, he loses them. Because, obviously, if he got sick with heart, it was removed from him, and so he goes to lose his experiences and acquires the experiences of the donor, who was killed, actually to put the heart in him, and so he's attracted to that other situation. So we do enormous damage because of this. So it all depends on what Jesus says, "Behold, I am coming soon, and bring with me the recompense. I will give to each according to his deeds." So what measures us is not our religious creed, it's the actions. By their fruits you will know them. Then, the lady asked me what I think about Stephen Greer. I think he's a great researcher, who lately has transformed into a farmer and is filling sacks of potatoes, because he's spouting one nonsense after another regarding the drone invasion, that they are government things, that it's all a deception, that all this. So for me, he has gone stupid.
Would it be the blue beam?
According to him, yes. But the blue beam is a military attack with deaths. Where is the attack if here the APU have crushed the American military power, and we heard it said directly by them? So, we are no longer the researchers who say certain things and those shout at us, "Stupid, stupid." Now they say them. They talk about UFOs in Congress. They talk about UFOs in the Senate. They talk about it. The generals, that was a 4-star general. Yes, honey, but one question at a time. Otherwise, we do. The blue beam exists. Stephen Greer told me personally in the early 90s, but it's not the blue beam. The blue beam is now unrealizable because there's no longer the condition to make the new world order. The blue beam could be done within that system. Please question. So Stephen Greer has completely lost his mind. Or maybe he has become arrogant.
Good evening, Pierre.
Hi.
By now, I know you for a short time, but I call you Pierre.
You do well.
So I wanted to reconnect to the discourse of organ donation.
Yes.
The discourse from before concerns only the donated organ, from deceased, who is still at the end of life, or a donation.
No, he's not deceased. That one is alive.
And what about those who donate an organ to save a life? In case I had to donate to someone.
Hey, it means that if you want to donate the organ, you are free to do it, but know that they will kill you.
Even in the case of the kidney?
They have to kill you. You have to be alive. If we could transplant an organ of a dead person, we would have defeated death. Is this concept clear to you? In the organ of a dead person, there's no longer the spirit. The organ works because there's the soul and the spirit. There, in that body. Brain death is an invention, because brain death is not a death. Because many people declared dead at brain level. After years, they recover. So it's a deception. Then do whatever you want, it's not my problem. But the people are alive. When the organ is explanted from them, where do they fool us? With sentimentalism, but how beautiful, you donated the organ and you saved a life. Yes, but you got yourself killed though. Then, if one wants to do it, let him do it. In fact, people tell me, but if I have a son who is dying, then you tell me I can't transplant the organ to him. Then I say, no. If there's another son who is dying and your son is still alive, or in brain death, do you accept that your son gets killed and the organ gets given to the other? Why don't we turn the question around? Then I would also ask another question. What's your name?
Francesca.
Francesca. I would also ask another question. Why do we always intervene on the effects and never on the causes? Because if I get sick, I have made mistakes, either in this life or in another. So, that's where I have to go solve the problem. Because even if I transplant the organ to myself, but since I will persevere in that mistake, I will get sick again. The spiritual laws serve to understand these things. Instead, we attach ourselves to mere physical life, which will end anyway to our selfish personal affection, and we don't understand the damage we go to do. Then, free will, everyone do as they want, but let's choose at least based on truth, not based on lies. Because, see, we react by automatism in relation to the manipulation that we have been given. So everyone says to me, but then, if I have a son I need to save, can't I have an organ transplanted into them? And I turn the question around. If you have a son who is brain dead but still alive, would you accept that his organs be explanted? Then, each person decides for themselves. Is that okay?
Yes, this is clear.
Then, if death doesn't exist, I don't have to live by force. Because the transplant recipient has to take anti-rejection drugs for life. And so, he lives a shitty life. I'm not interested in living by force. I'm interested in the quality of life. And if I made mistakes such that I got sick in the heart, in the kidney, in the liver, wherever you want, I have to go understand the causes, why I got sick. Because if I don't solve those causes, I will get sick again in this life, in the other, in the other, in the other. So, our way of reasoning is stupid. Because it comes from an aberrant ignorance about things that are very important and fundamental, our evolution, our eternity. Today, science has discovered these things, but they don't say them. The light that we emanate, pulsating light, can be filmed. We are not this piece of dead flesh that sooner or later ends, burned in a coffin. We are something much more noble and high. We are an intelligent, eternal entity. But we don't have to believe in these things because someone told us Korea, or the priest, or the Pope. We have to study them, and we have to find the proofs, because a truth of which we have proof. No one will take it away from us anymore, as long as instead we will delegate to the priest, to the doctor, to the presumed scientist. We will always end up getting screwed. Then you can find out for yourself what it is. So, organ donation is a crime because it has become a gigantic business. Do you know how many wounded Ukrainian soldiers were killed to donate their organs to the filthy rich, who with their dissolute lives ruin their kidneys, hearts, livers, and everything else? This is the truth. And let's please stop reasoning sentimentally and instead reason with discernment. Because for a life that you are giving, but who are you saving? An ignorant person dies to save another ignorant person. Save him from what? The destiny of both is already marked. They are ignorant, and they will be held accountable for their deeds, not for whether they had a good liver or a bad liver. There's a movie which I recommend watching. It's called No Solar. This doctor I'm not being aggressive with you, darling, okay? I wouldn't want to be misunderstood. Because the average condition, even mine, before I met my spiritual father, I was a jerk, you know? You know what a jerk is? Actually, 2 jerks in one I was, because there was a discount. Then let's just bleep that out, guys. I lived my life. I like to have fun, money, career, girls. Then I see the spaceships, and I meet Eugenio Siragusa, and he flips me. So, from being a railway machinist, I ended up being an American preacher on stages. Think about what a career. So, we are ignorant. This humanity is... This humanity is disgusting. Because we continue to mind our own business, while our government gives weapons to Zelensky, gives weapons to Netanyahu, terrible crimes, genocides. But what kind of people are we? So I'm not interested in this life. I'm interested in fighting with the weapons of knowledge so that the human being changes himself. Whoever wants to, the other's their business. It's not my problem. Free will. I can only offer a knowledge because it was given to me. I mean, I worked very hard to acquire it. Free will? I made this choice. Everyone make their own, but with sentimentalisms, we cause enormous damage to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to others, by basing our knowledge on the lies of criminals who manipulate us daily, and they have names and surnames. They are called Bruno Vespa, Fazio, Lily Gruber, Mentina. This riffraff here, but they obey powers that are behind them, and they are prostitutes, the worst kind of prostitutes there are. And these fill our heads with cultural excrement that then determine in us models and behavioral structures such that as soon as I hear transplant, it doesn't trigger my son being explanted. It triggers my son being saved. But from what? If we have to die anyway, in the end, what is life? A countdown between birth and death, and we still live. As if this fact didn't exist, it's a creed. A creed? But here we all croak. In 200 years of all of us, there's not even one alive, not even those who are being born now. Sooner or later, we will have to take this story in hand and solve it, while the Eternal speaks to us. Oh, it's not the Eternal, it's an APU. Well, I despair, honey, because even recently I went to the morgue to visit a friend person, elderly anyway, who died. I was touching and caressing him because the spirit was still there. I was talking to him because he could hear me, and I was saying, but is it possible, with all our dead loved ones that we see, that to this question we don't desperately try to give an answer? But what kind of people are we? But how stupid are we? All life spent for career, for money, for possession, and then Sister Death comes, gives you a little kiss on the cheek, and you fall to the ground. And then, up there, it's not the APU that kicks your ass, it's someone higher up. End of the speech. These people, Maloney, Zelensky, are preparing a future for their life in the afterlife, and for their next lives. That is frightening. They don't know what trouble they're going to meet. Eugenio Siragusa, my spiritual father, had a German shepherd who was the reincarnation of a priest who had tortured him in the time of the Inquisition. And it was his dog. Aha! Down, down. These little books, and in others talk about these things, they are explained. The fact of making wars, of attacking peoples to steal their goods, are frightening troubles for those who do it. The beings say, you prepare a terrible destiny for yourselves when you go to influence and manipulate the karma of other people. This information is very precious because then these things happen, and there, the Lord says, there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Please.
Hi, Pierre. I'm Francesco.
Hi, Francesco.
It's very complicated to ask you questions because you are always so clear that it's complicated. Mine come from curiosity. One about prophecies.
You mean my answers are complicated?
They are so clear that it's complicated to find the questions.
Okay, thank you.
So they are more out of curiosity. One is about prophecies, from those illuminated, the elected, and now also the Mayans. It seems they give us a future prediction, as if it were an already written story.
Which is actuality. It's certain.
You have said 1,000 times that in any case, based on our behavior, we could have changed this future, but...
Your personal one.
Yes, but consequently, also that of humanity, if everyone changed...
No.
No?
Let me explain better.
Okay, then the second one, which is sillier. If, in the laundry, 2 women, one is taken and one isn't, this is a bit of an optimistic way to look at it.
Yes.
2 farmers, one gets left and one doesn't. We are 8 billion, 4 billion people will be saved?
No.
No, eh?
Because the gospel was written by the evangelists. Some were apostles. Like Matthew, others were not. Like Mark, Luke. Luke was a doctor, friend of Paul, the apostle, Saint Paul. Those who did the works that Christ commands are saved. Period. The extraterrestrial count is about 10 million adults.
I know perfectly well, but...
Very low. Plus all the children alive at the moment. One will be taken and one will be left. Is an expression, it's not a mathematical count, it's a way of saying that the spaceships will take only the deserving ones. The others they abandon to their destiny. They made that choice. Then the discourse of the project of the future of the prophecy. So you are at the gaming table and you play roulette. Okay? The roulette game has those rules. So you within the game can vary your destiny of winning or losing in relation to your abilities to know how to play, but you cannot vary the game. So God has a project within His project that no one can modify except Him. You can play your game, either win or lose. End of free will, but no one changes His project. Since His project,
that of the prophecy, is a confirmed future.
It's a confirmed future that there will be the kingdom. Today, we have demonstrated, data in hand, authoritative senators, generals, Pentagon spokesmen, that Trump today should have been dead. Bob Kennedy Jr. should have been dead. And we, all radioactive. Because the accord of the Clintons, of the Bidens, and everything that is connected, Draghi, von der Leyen, to all this gang of criminal morons would have already thrown the nuclear missiles. This is geopolitics. Trump, when they shot at him, he was saved. He says it. God saved me. Because that bullet should have blown off his skull. Many have said, it was a fake attack, it was agreed, but no one gets shot in the ear on purpose. Then, if you watch the video, he moves continuously. So, at the moment when the bullet passes, he turns to look at the screen, and it grazes his ear. So, God changed history. So geopolitics, that of the great geopoliticians, is laughable because it doesn't take into account the boss who determines history, who is that being that we saw before. So, Francesco, I was a railway worker. I meet Eugenio Siragusa. I begin to be interested to study these things after a year and a half. I ask for a contact. You know, right?
I know everything perfectly.
Perfect, they come. I ask, what are they? The APU? No, I hear a phone ringing. I ask for a contact because Eugenio tells me that these beings were looking for collaborators, okay? The contact happens. And so I had asked, if you show up, we shake hands, we make the collaboration agreement. They come, but after some years they tell me, leave the railways. And I say, oh shit, what do you mean leave the railways? Hey, I don't like it. Sorry, but you asked to work with us. So if you want to work with us, you are not the one who gives orders. We give the orders. And so, I left the railways. I have to admit, and I've said it many times, that I did it with fear. Because I still hadn't understood well who these are. Because in their program, in their project, a railway worker, from railway worker, had to become an international television documentarian. I never did any kind of school, of cinema, nothing, all self-taught. And I went to win first prizes around the world, to collaborate with RAI, with other televisions. Then they told me, leave television, now do this. Now I have fun, because I understood how it works. Free will. So what am I telling you? I could say yes, I could say no. If I said no, now I was a retired machinist. But I would have remained in Sardinia. Yes, maybe I would have understood some things, but certainly not what I understand today, because the relationship with them, thank God, continues to this day. And so free will. Within God's project, I have revolutionized, in a gigantic and beautiful way, my life.
Are prophecies things that must happen?
They must happen. You can change your destiny within God's project, but only God can change God's project.
I understand the Illuminati, but the Mayans, how could they imagine?
Because they had the contact, and they told them.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pleasure Victor.
Hi, Victor.
I wanted to ask if you remembered a case of crop circles appearing not far from here. And we're talking about the Cercio area. The case from 2003-2004, which some claimed was a hoax case, and about which some information still circulates on the web.
Look, I don't remember it. I have a vague memory, but I couldn't tell you. But anyway, it changes little. The phenomenon is real, and as in all things, there are the real ones, and there are the false ones. The important thing is to understand the context, the reason, and the purpose of these phenomena. Then that one is false, another true. It doesn't change much.
May I allow myself to leave you a small booklet?
Yes, sure. Leave it to the girls who are there at the stand.
Agreed.
Okay, friends, thank you.
Grazie.